Guruve Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyat Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayan Namaskrityam Naranchayva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki सर्वशास्त्रादि पीयूष सर्ववैदिक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाध्य सर्वलौकिक दृक्पद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद्भागवत प्रभो कलिद्वंतोदितादित्य श्री कृष्ण परिवर्तिता प्रेमानंद पाठाय प्रेम वर्ष अक्षराय ते सर्वद सर्वसेवाय श्री कृष्णाय नमोस्तुते मद एक बंधु मद संगी मद गुरु मन महादना मन निस्तारक मन भाग्य मद आनंद नमोस्तुते असाधु साधु तादाइन अति नीचो च ताकर हाना मुंचा कदातिन मा प्रेम रित कंठ योस्पुरः. So we can meditate on the last two lines. Hana muncha kadachinma. Please never leave me, Shriman Bhagavata. Prema rit kanta yospura. Accompanied by pure love for Krishna manifests in my heart and my throat. Kranta Shriman Bhagavatam. Okay. So we'll be continuing at chapter 9, passing away of Bhishma Dev in presence of Lord Krishna. And last time we discussed up to, I think we are in this third section, section of 18 to 24, where Bhishma Dev glorifies Krishna as the Supreme Lord. So the first section is where Bhishma, he welcomed the Pandavas, Lord Shri Krishna, how they actually came to Bhishma Dev, dressed in a very opulent way, right? We discussed about that point. And then all the different sages, from different parts of the universe actually came, and there was a list of all the different sages with Prabhupada and the purpose giving a story, like a brief story for each one of the sages. But Narad Muni was there, all these different personalities were there. Then, and we know the reason how this story started was Yudhishthir was lamenting that so many 640 million people have been killed because of me, right? And even Krishna tried to pacify him, Vyasadeva tried to pacify him, still he was not pacified. And then finally, Krishna, by Krishna's instruction, they all came to Bhishma Dev to finally hear Bhishma Dev speaking, giving that knowledge to Yudhishthira. Right? So in that way, Krishna wanted to glorify Bhishma Dev, and also Krishna wanted to be present in front of Bhishma Dev, you know, when he's actually leaving his body. Right? So, so we'll quickly go through Bhishma Dev's, what his series of points, starting from text 12 onward, and then I think from text 20 we'll go through verse by verse again. We'll stop at 20. Okay, and then the next section, what we are going to read. So we'll finish this section up to 24, and then the next section is Bhishma Dev's instructions to Yudhishthira. What will Bhishma Dev talk about to Yudhishthira? So the first section from 12 all the way to 24 is the part where he's consoling Yudhishthira Maharaj and also revealing some very deep secrets of bhakti, right? And then the next part is where Bhishma Dev is going to give instructions to Yudhishthira Maharaj. So we'll quickly, it's like 3-4 verses where all those instructions are there. So we'll go through those instructions briefly. And then the last part of this chapter is basically Bhishma Dev's final departure. And how we say Bhagavatam is teaching us the art of living and also the art of dying. Right? One of the devotees says, how we live and how we live. Bhagavatam is teaching us both. How we live and how we live. Right? So we learn so much from the passing away of Bhishma Dev, that how we can prepare our consciousness for finally the moment that which each one of us has to face, the moment of our final departure, our final exam, so to say. Right? Okay. So before we proceed, we will do a quick sharing. Okay. So again, welcome everyone. So let's do a quick sharing of points you realized in your last week's study of the Srimad Bhagavatam from Bhishma Dev's chapters up to text 20. Any particular point that stood out to you? Who would like to start?
Tribulations imposed upon the devotees by the Lord constitute another exchange of transcendental bhava between the Lord and the devotees. So to experience Anubhav and further enhanced in Sai-bhava. So last week we discussed about how to enhance Anubhav to Sai-bhava.
Yes, so we'll discuss a little bit more on that. We'll start off with that theme because last time it was towards the end. But thank you so much for being with me. Okay, next.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. I like the point how the Lord teaches the world by teaching the devotee.
Nice, very nice. So the Lord teaches the world by teaching his devotees. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I think one point stood out to me very strong, and it came in our Bhakti Vrikshas also, is how time is the cause of everything. So that's like time also, we have a saying that time also heals, but time also sometimes is a cause for sufferings. It's not the karma all the time, but it could be the time.
Okay, so we'll discuss that further today also, like how we read the verse Sarva Kalam Kritam Mani. Everything happens by the sense of time. Okay. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes,
and then Prabhuji, I like the point that the best policy is just to abide by the orders of the Lord without argument, because no one can ascertain what is the real plan of Krishna.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
It is useless to inquire about it.
And Krishna is standing right in front of us, like, why don't you ask him? And Vishnu, it's useless to ask. Krishna is very tricky. Even if I ask, he'll just give a smile and then we'll forget that question. So we'll just abide by his what he wants us to do. Thank you. Okay, next.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
So we, how to differentiate between the principles and details? Like, I like the Prabhupada's answer. It takes little intelligence to implement that. And I also like the principles, like how to receive the guest, like which is 3 principles: the sweet words, and the offering water,
Yes.
and the happy expression.
Thank you. Thank you, Guru. Very nice.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Mati.
Yeah, I really like that they are like all the Pandavas dress up nicely to make Bhishma Dev happy when they visited him. So they are like how Bhishma Dev is expecting. So they were going there, and all the sages appeared there. So it's so nice how Bhishma Dev is a great person. Yeah, I
Yes.
really like.
Thank you, Mati. Next.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat
Yes.
Pranam.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, Bhishma Dev said like Pandavas that you did a very good job, but they are very innocent actually, but they suffered like terrible suffering, and how the terrible injustice they did. Actually, they are very good soul. They are Dharmatma, but they suffer. So Bhishma Dev say, "Oh, you did it, but." They protected because they protected by Brahmanas, God and religion, because they believe in that stuff. That is the main thing. They are Dharmatma.
Yeah, Bhishma says, Aho Kashtam, Aho Nyayam.
Yes.
What kind of suffering that you have? Aho is an expression of
Yes.
kind of sufferings you have. What kind of injustice, Nyayam, you have suffered. And that verse actually ends with Vipra Dharma Achyut.
And
Right? So Prabhupada purpose says these are our 3 guiding principles of our life. What is it? Direction of the Brahmanas, the desire of Lord Shri Krishna, and then our religious principles.
yes.
Very nice. Verse.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
I have similar point with Mataji just shared. I like in text 14, yeah, it's similar point, the 3 principles, but also how Krishna says even the most pious has to suffer the conditional material nature. So with that in mind, I feel it helps me to be very just accepting and during the time of disturbance, because knowing that suffering always comes, then I can maintain equipoised. So yeah, I just like that.
Like how in the section it said, like if you are actually living your life according to the 3 guiding principles of Vipra, Dharma, and Achyuta, then there is no cause for lamentation. Wonderful. Thank you. Next.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Rohan.
Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, I like the point from Prabhupada's purport in text 17. A devotee's duty, therefore, is to ungrudgingly accept tribulations from the Lord as a benediction.
This is repeated, like 8th chapter we had the same thing. 9th chapter, same thing. Thank you. Who else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
I like the same point that we cannot understand Krishna's plan, so we should just accept it. And I also like the point why devotees suffer sometimes. Is Krishna's plan to purify the devotees, set an example, and exhausting their karma sometimes.
Thank you, bro. Who else is there? Like to go ahead?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
I like the point how Bhishma was not Prabhupada said he was not in a fit condition to answer Yudhishthira's questions, but Krishna wanted to prove that his pure devotees are always sound in body and mind by dint of spiritual enlightenment, and thus in any circumstance the devotee of the Lord is in perfect order to speak of the right way of life. So
that's actually today's verse, right?
That's today, yeah.
They'll come into this. Yes, thank you. Anything else? Yes, Mati.
I couldn't I already shared my realization, but I just thought one thing that, as we are talking about that, how time is the factor, okay, of giving karma. But at the same time, we read how in the verse that the 325
38, that my wheel of time does not affect my devotees, then why do devotees suffer? It is causeless mercy. And then the same we finished with the 19th purport, where Prabhupada has again given that anubhava, the sufferings gives them the tribulation, crying. I sometimes used to feel that, when devotees are crying, like I have seen my Guru Maharaj sometimes suffer, and he's crying. So I used to feel that he's crying from the bodily pains. But this purport and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur's purport has given me a complete different understanding of how the pain to be understood.
Yes. We'll start our class with that discussion. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Mati.
I like the line here in text 19, that tribulations offered by the Lord to his devotee are different from the tribulations resulting from vicious actions.
Yeah.
So it is not a suffering for devotees.
Yes, Krishna is personally taking care of what situations we go through. Thank you. Okay, so thank you all so much for sharing. So let's move on. So I'm going to do a quick review of what Bhishma Dev has spoken to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And this also theme, I think the few points have been summarized now. So let's quickly overview. So, so when the first thing that Bhishma Dev, he congratulated Yudhishthira, and then he actually starts off by saying, Aho Kashtam Aho Nyayam, Yajuyam Dharma Nandana, Jivitam Nartha Klishna, Vipra Dharma, Achut Ashraya. Right? So basically say like, what kind of injustice and what kind of sufferings that you have gone through. Right? But you have been alive. You are alive only because you are guided by Dharma, Achyuta, and Vipra. Right? Vipra referring to, you can say, Vaishnava. Right? Vaishnavas, the Lord Shri Krishna, and the Dharma. And because of that, you have alive. You are actually even alive. So even the first verse that, the first point that Bhishma Dev is actually saying is that there is no cause for your lamentation because you have followed these three principles. Hence, you are not at fault. And Yudhishthira Maharaj was lamenting because he was thinking that it's all my fault. And in Bhishma Dev, first point itself is clarified that. And then he said about Kunti Devi's suffering. So, and then he goes on to the point that all that is happening is because of inevitable time. Right? Sarvam Kala Kritam Manye. Everything that's happening is because of the inevitable time. So, so if you see the series of points that Bhishma Dev is actually telling to Yudhishthira Maharaj, he starts off by pointing out that you are actually leading your life based on Dharma, Achyuta, and Vipra, right? So what you are doing is perfectly right. And then he actually comes to the point and he actually says everything that's happening is due to the influence of inevitable time, right? But then we discuss the point that time is actually just a substratum for carrying our own prarabdha karma, right? So time is just the medium through which our own karma is coming to us. So one may say, like, what about Yudhishthira? Is it his karma? No. The next verse, he actually, in text 15, he actually points out that it cannot be karma for Yudhishthira because that is actually in the presence of Yudhishthira himself as Dharmaraj, and you have Arjun, you have who has the Gandiva, and finally, main point is Krishna is on your side. When Krishna is on your side, how can there be the influence of karma through the medium of inevitable time? Okay, so that point is not valid for you, but that is for common people. Yes, that's the reason for a suffering. Now, next, taking it to the next level. Okay, if it's not due to karma that all this that I'm going through, then why is it? And then he actually makes everything is actually acting according to the plan of Lord Shri Krishna, right? And no one can actually understand the plan. Nahi asya karichid raja, Puman Veda viditsata. So nahi asya karichid. No one can know, O king, the plan of Krishna. Man Veda, Veda means to understand the plan of Krishna, right? So therefore, what we should do, we should just accept the plan of the Lord and obey it. And then you now are actually the nath of those who have become anath, right? So you are the master. So many people now have become anath. Now you do your duty of becoming the emperor and you become the Nath for all these Anath people, right? So that is the point. Okay, so that is the next stage, right? So starting off with the point of influence of time, but time means just karma that is not applicable to you. The next point is it is actually due to Krishna's plan, right? And then the final point is the highest point there, where it actually talks of the point of anubhav, that the suffering that Krishna is giving to his devotees is actually an expression of anubhav. Okay? So this point I wanted to little bit start off with this point, and then like the verses 19, 18, 19 we actually read, basically saying how Krishna actually he bewilders everyone by his actions, and one can actually, even Shiva, Narada, Kapila, they know his glories very confidentially through direct contact. Right? So Mahajanas know him. So up to the extent that Krishna reveals himself, these Mahajanas actually know Krishna. Okay? Now, text 19, let's just read the translation quickly. O King, Lord Shiva, Narada, the sage among the demigods, and Kapila, the incarnation god, all know very confidentially about his glories through direct contact. Okay, so this Anubhav, which is translated as glory, is further elaborated by Prabhupada in the purport and also by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that this Anubhav is actually one of the expressions, like how Prabhupada says, tribulations imposed upon devotees constitute another exchange of transcendental bhav. Right, so that anubhav is actually one expression of transcendental bhav, and the Lord says, I put my devotee into difficulty, and thus the devotee becomes more purified in exchanging transcendental bhav with me. Okay. Now this anubhav, let's let me share my screen quickly. So this is anyway nectar of devotion. I was thinking whether I should go into this, but very quickly I'm going to touch upon this. And this is a scene here basically of Bhishma Dev. He's lying on the bed of arrows, and you have the 5 Pandavas and Lord Shri Krishna right in front of Bhishma Dev. Okay. Now, this is basically in Nectar of Devotion. That is a southern way. So mostly we read the eastern, but the next part is a southern ocean. Right? We read the eastern. So now is the southern ocean. So there are 5 components of rasa. So Vibhav, Anubhav, Satvika Bhav, Vyabhichari Bhav, and Sthayi Bhav. Right, and then these are basically chapters from NOD that actually talk about these. Not going too much into detail because this itself is like a whole course basically, right? So Vibhav. So the best way to actually understand this is the best way to understand this. Needs to mute. Hare Krishna. Okay. Okay. So the best way to understand this is the example of a mother and a child, right? So the mother, she sees an object of the child, or she sees a photo of the child, and immediately there's emotions in her heart. So those emotions can be considered the first one of Vibhav. Anubhav is basically expression of those emotions. Right? So the mother has those emotions, and as soon as she sees a child, she actually embraces a child, she kisses the child, she takes a child on the lap. Those are actually the ecstatic expressions. So those are the expressions of the emotions in Vibhav. Right? The third one is Satvika Bhav. Satvika Bhav is also expressions, but it is actually involuntary. Right? So the mother actually, she sees the child, and voluntarily she actually embraces, but tears are coming from her eyes. That is something involuntary. It's not that something she actually, like how embracing you voluntarily do that. It is tears coming from her eyes. She's crying, that tears of love. That is involuntary. That is Satvika. Vyabhichari Bhav is actually considered as transient ecstatic disturbances. That basically means like when the child, like let's say a small child is crawling, and the mother is seeing at a distance that the child is at a dangerous position, that if he takes one more step, then he'll fall. Then imagine the emotions in the mother, right? It is that the heightened emotion. They say, "Oh, my child," and this is the example is described that how when Krishna actually saw, Mother Yashoda saw Krishna in the coils of Kaliya. Right? So this is described in the 10th canto. Then finally, when Mother Yashoda and all the other Vrindavan Vasis, they're following the Krishna's footsteps, they come to the banks of the Yamuna, and then they see Krishna in the coil of Kaliya. Then Mother Yashoda expresses this Vyabhichari. Right? And then the Sthai Bhav is actually the permanent ecstatic mood. That is basically that mother and child relationship. That is basically the Sthai Bhav. And Prabhupada says in NOD, without some mixture of these 5 ecstatic principles, one cannot relish rasa, transcendental bliss. So any transcendental bliss is relished when there is a combination of this. So now coming back to our discussion, Krishna is actually expressing this anubhav, having this anubhav with his devotees. And how is that? That is basically in text 20. Okay, so let's start with text 20. Hare Krishna.
Text 20. Yam manyase matuleyam priyam mitram suritamam makaro sachivam bhutam suridad vatasaratim.
Okay, so the list is on your chat. So Arundhati Mata starts first, then Divinity.
Translation, O King, that personality whom out of ignorance only you thought to be your maternal cousin, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, etc., is that very personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna.
Right? So this verse is actually showing Krishna's anubhav, or the actions which are performed due to that deep emotions that Krishna has for the Pandavas. So Krishna, in that mood of deep love, he becomes their own well-wisher, the counselor, the messenger, their dear friend. He acts in dear friend, etc. Is this actually described? So Bhishma Dev is telling that Yudhishthira, only out of ignorance you are actually thinking that he's your maternal cousin. You know, this is that he is your dear friend, well-wisher, and this same personality is actually Krishna, so the supreme personality of God. Okay, so that is 20. Now let's go further. 21.
Prabhu, 1 minute. So Krishna is experiencing Anubhav or the devotee is experiencing Anubhav?
Both ways, right? Because both
Krishna
ways.
is also experiencing.
Well, Krishna is the Raso Vaisaha, right?
Rasavaisa.
Right? He is the abode of all the rasas. So these rasas which are exchanged is actually from both sides. Krishna is experiencing, the child, like the devotee also experiencing. So that, you know, how in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Arjun says, like, you know, out of ignorance, I thought you as my own friend. I had these informal dealings with you. So there was rasa from both sides. That's how in a relationship it works. So, okay, I was going to quickly also share. Let me share one more thing. This is anyway. This is a little bit tangent, but I just want to share. So this is the dynamics of bhakti rasa. Sthai bhav is our real what affection we have towards Krishna, and one of the 5 primary rasas: vibhava, anubhava, satvika bhava, and vyabhicharika. Okay, so now just going through, you know, how do we understand this whole thing that Bhishma Dev is making the point that the sufferings that the Pandava has is actually just to enhance their Sthai-bhav, right? So for a sadhaka, the vibhav and anubhav is actually revealing the Sthai-bhav, right? But for those who are pure devotees, the vibhav, anubhav, satvika bhav, vyabhichari bhav is actually enhancing these Sthai-bhav, right? So you see a difference. So those who are pure devotees, these exchanges are enhancing. For those who are sadhakas, these emotions are actually revealing our Sthai bhav, right? So that's why in our practice of bhakti, all these emotions, they actually reveal our Sthai bhav gradually as we progress. So one just referring to this one incident, that we see that incident of Draupadi Vrastaharan, right? When Draupadi was disrobed in the assembly of the Kurus. Right? So one way, if you consider, this is actually the most, you can say, the most atrocious act of the Kauravas, where such a chaste lady as Draupadi, so a devotee of Krishna, she is actually being disrobed in that entire assembly, right? And we, like when Draupadi is actually, she's being disrobed by Dusasan and Karna actually uh, instructed to do this. But when Dusasan was disrobing, initially her plea was, all you great assembled people, referring to Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya and all, Dhritarashtra, you all are here, stop this injustice. So she was asking for protection from all the members of the Kuru people, right? And then like everyone was quiet, and there was this whole discussion about like Yudhishthir gambled, he himself gambled first, he gambled himself first, then does he have the right to gamble me and all those things. But anyway, so the coming to a main point is she actually turned to all these Kuru assembly first for shelter. No one actually responded. She turned to her own husbands, no one responded, right? And then she had one hand, she was holding the sari, other hand she turned to Krishna. She called for Krishna. And it is described at the time Krishna was in Dwarka and he was playing dice with Rukmini. When Krishna plays dice with Rukmini. And normally Krishna wins, right? So Krishna is so tricky that even the dice falls in some way, he tricks and he wins. But at the time he was losing. And then Rukmini asked Krishna that, oh, very strange that you're losing now. And then, is something wrong? And then Krishna says, yes, my dear devotee Draupadi is being brought into the assembly of the Kurus to be disrobed. And Rukmini said, oh, aren't you going to do something about it? He said, yes, but there is not enough time. And then she said, but you are as a Paramatma in everyone's heart. How come there's not enough time? And Krishna said, well, you will not understand. And then they continue playing dice. And at the time, then Krishna stopped in between, after some time. Then he said, okay, now that is time. Now I can go. And Rukmini said, like, before you said there's no time and now you're saying there's time? Yes, there is time. I can go immediately. Why? Because Draupadi has created a path for me to come by her own tears and by her own full surrender of calling my holy name. And in that way, Krishna said, that is the path. He immediately goes. So when Draupadi was holding one hand, Krishna was also waiting because he said, it will take time for me to go. But when Draupadi released both her hands, like we see in that painting, both hands, she's just like completely calling out. And this is the verse that Draupadi actually says, is given in Mahabharata. O Govinda, O resident of Dwarka, O Krishna, O friend of the Gopis, do you not know I am being humiliated by the Kauravas? O Lord of Lakshmi, O Lord of Vraja, O destroyer of affliction, save me. I'm drowning in the ocean of the Kauravas. O Janardana, O Krishna, O best of the yogis, O soul of the world, O origin of the world, please protect this surrendered soul. O Govinda, I'm sinking in the midst of the Kurus. Right? So basically she's chanting Krishna's name and in that complete surrender, right? With tears in her eyes. And Krishna said, just that mood of complete surrender, calling my name with tears in her eyes, that has created the path for me to immediately go to take shelter. So one way, if you see just from the Mahabharata point of view, it seems that this incident, such suffering, Draupadi, she's such an exalted devotee. How can she go through such suffering, right? But on the sign of rasa, right? From the point of Bhagavatam, we see that this is actually deepest expression of the Anubhav, which is actually enhancing the devotion of Draupadi to Krishna. And Krishna is also reciprocating with that devotion, with that unalloyed, complete devotion that Draupadi has, that expression of love. As Prabhupada says in the purport, it actually is, and that one sentence we just read. Prabhupada says, tribulations imposed are the exchange of that transcendental bhav. So we see here, there's that exchange of transcendental bhav. And and then, so this is, I wanted to go through this because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur goes through these bhavs in the purport. And he says, like, the knowers of rasa, they know that it is actually this prema, this object of prema, that actually conquers both the parties. It actually brings both party under control, right? And this is the prema. This is the crest jewel of all the goals for human life. So this is actually prema pumartho mahan, right? The highest goal is that love, right? So for that love, any suffering, anything that's coming is actually just to enhance that mood of love. So all the suffering, right? Okay. Okay. So that makes that completes that section. So so if you consider the whole theme, Yudhishthira Maharaj was lamenting that, oh, all this happened because of me, all these incidences, all this suffering, I am responsible. And what has Bhishma just established, that all these things that happen is actually the exchange of Krishna's love for all the Pandavas. So see with what intention Yudhishthira Maharaj came, and see how Bhishma Pitama has completely changed the picture, right? He just said, no, everything that's happened is actually the exchange of transcendental bhav between you and the Pandavas, just to show how much Krishna loves the Pandavas. And today, actually, when we'll read Bhishma Dev's prayers, this theme will be repeated, where Bhishma Dev points out, oh, actually, you have come here only because the Pandavas have such deep love for you. And I have some relationship to the Pandavas. So because you have such love for Pandavas and I have relation to the Pandavas, that's why you. Okay, so we'll come to that. Okay, let's continue. So having made the point that Krishna has acted as friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, and so on. But this is the same supreme personality of Godhead who is actually relishing that rasa. Okay, text 21.
Sarvatmana samadrisho yadvayasya hankrite tatkritam mati vaishamyam niravadyasya nakvachit.
Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone, and he is free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material impurity. He is equibalanced.
So one may say that Krishna is taking the role of a chariot driver. Does it actually minimize the glory of Krishna? No, it does not minimize. And this verse is actually saying Krishna is in the heart of everyone. He's equally kind to everyone, right? But like the Sanskrit actually comes as anahankara. Like he's not affected by this false ego. He's free from the false ego of differentiation. Right? It's not that Krishna is becoming chariot driver and now that's like, like chariot driver is considered like a very menial position, right? It's not that that's minimizing Krishna's position. He does not have false ego. There's no false ego on Krishna's part, and he's free from the and therefore whatever he does is free from material impurity. So any position Krishna may take, whether that is washing the feet of the visitors at the Rasuya Yagya or any position, he is actually not affected. That is not like, oh, Krishna has now taken a low position. No, that's nothing for Krishna. He's free from all false. Okay? So anahankara is free from material identity of false ego and differentiation. So any role that Krishna takes, it does not minimize his opulence or glory, but actually it magnifies that Krishna, out of the love for his devotees, is willing to take any position, right? Though materially it may appear. Prabhupada in the purport actually makes the point that Krishna is, like we say, he's become the chariot driver of Arjun, but actually he's a chariot driver for everyone. Right? He's in the heart as Paramatma, he is guiding everyone. Right? So Prabhupada says he's already the chariot driver and counsel for all the living beings. Right? So where is up and down for Krishna? Right? Krishna taking the position of Partha Sarthi is not minimal. He's anyway guiding every one of us. Okay. Next, and Prabhupada makes a point. This is actually the power of bhakti, the power of devotional service is actually demonstrated by Krishna taking such menial services. Right? So, materialists or atheists may actually say, oh, Krishna, they like Krishna taking menial positions may give them a chance to minimize the position of Krishna. But for devotees who understand rasa, this actually enhances they know that all this is actually enhancing the rasa And this is actually showing the power of pure devotional service. Okay. Okay. Now text 22.
Tatapi ekanta bhakteshu pashya bhupanukampitam yanme sumstyajata sat Krishna darshanam agataha.
Translation, yet despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I'm ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor.
Tathapi ekanta bhakteshu. Like here, Bhishma Dev was saying, I am his unflinching servitor. Right? So he's equal to everyone. So in the previous point, he actually made the point that Krishna is not affected with the up and down of this material nature, right? A chariot driver position or washing the feet, all that does not affect Krishna. So he's transcendental. He's equal to everyone. Yet he actually has come before me while I'm ending my life because I am his devotee. And this actually proves which verse of Bhagavad Gita we can put in the chat or just unmute and say. This particular verse is proving which verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Anyone? This famous verse.
Sarvabhuteshu.
No. Oh yeah. What did you say? What are the words you said?
Samoham
Yes,
Sarvabhuteshu.
exactly. Samoham sarvabhuteshu. I'm equal to everyone. Yet those who actually engage in devotional service to me, I am actually reciprocal to them. I show them special favor. And this is not a question of partiality on the part of the Lord, but those who are actually devotees of the Lord, then the Lord actually reciprocates their devotion. Right? So text 29 of the 9th chapter. I envy no one, nor am partial to anyone. I'm equal to everyone. But whoever renders service to me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So Bhishma Dev is actually making the point, same point. You are equal to everyone, but because I am your bhakta, you have actually come to me when I am ready to leave my life. Now, so Prabhupada and Prabhupada points out that he is equal to everyone, but he is more inclined to his unflinching devotee. Now, there's one sentence in this purport that is very beautiful sentence that we can memorize. So it says in the last line of the last sentence of the first paragraph, a living entity is so made by the will of the Almighty that he is most happy when placing himself in a condition of absolute dependence. The living entity is so made, we are made in such a way, our existence is in such a way that how can we really be happy? By declaring our dependence on Krishna. That's the only way we can be happy. That is the real secret of happiness, is to say, okay, my only shelter is Krishna. Krishna, I am yours, you are mine. That is all I know. Right? To have that complete shelter, right? And we discussed this point that if you consider our lifetime, if you see the entire lifetime, one may say that the time when we were most happy in this life, when we are completely dependent on our parents. When our parents are there, they will provide you, say, whatever you ask for. Mommy, I want puri. It will appear in no time. Mommy, I want pizza. It will appear in no time. You don't even have to tell, oh, mommy, take care of me. You'll get new clothes, you'll get new shoes, you'll get new everything. Food is provided. You're bathed properly. Everything is taken care of. What anxiety as a child have, right? So similarly, when we actually declare our complete dependence on Krishna, that is actually our most happy condition. And that is how we are created, right? So Prabhupada is saying, a living is so made by the will of the Lord. We are created by the will of the Lord, that he is most happy when we declare our dependence on Krishna. So that ekanta bhakteshu is what Prabhupada is elaborating by saying. Ekanta means that, yeah, we can take shelter of so many things, but giving up all those shelters and taking shelter of only Krishna. And Krishna, actually, when you say Krishna, naturally includes Krishna's devotees. Okay. Okay. So another very nice point in this verse in text 22 is Okay, we'll come to this later. Actually, there's one point Prabhupada mentioned, but it will come later also. So when it comes in the next verse, I will come to that. Okay, so let's go further. Next verse.
Text 23. Bhaktya veshya mano yasmin vacharyan nama kirtayan tyajan kalevaram yogi mujyate kama karma bihi.
The personality of Godhead who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation and by chanting of the holy name releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of his quitting the material body.
So it says bhaktya by bhakti, devotional service, right? Avesha, meditating, mind, and kirtayam by chanting the name, right? So if a personality of Godhead, he appears in the mind of a devotee who by attentive devotion, meditation, chanting the name of God. So if we actually do these three things, by attentive devotion, meditation, chanting the names of the Lord, right? Then the Krishna actually, he appears in the mind and he releases the devotee from all kinds of material bondage at the time of quitting his body. Right? So Krishna actually does that. Sometimes we actually think that, oh, if we have led our life in Krishna consciousness, doing these three principles, but still sometimes there may be anxiety. Oh, at the time of death, will I be able to think of Krishna? But here Bhishma Dev is saying, Krishna comes and he actually releases a devotee from all kinds of material bondage, right? Provided we have actually led our life following these three principles. Right? And Prabhupada actually in the purport, he focuses on this point that so he says, such concentration or 100% engagement in the service of the Lord is actually samadhi. And Prabhupada comes to a point that one needs to, like 24 hours a day, absorb in the service of Lord. And if we can do that through the 9 process of hearing, chanting, remembering, etc., Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, etc., then for sure at the end of life, Krishna will come and then he will appear in the mind of the devotee. He will release us from all sorts of anxieties, all sorts of material bondage. Right? Krishna will do that, right? If we can actually lead our life in 10% absorption in devotional service. Right? And this is actually coming from a mouth of a Mahajan. Vishnu Dev is one of the Mahajans. So a Mahajan is actually giving us an assurance that don't worry, you do your part, Krishna will come in their mind, he'll appear to you. Right? Okay, so there's one beautiful sentence and purport. The perfect yogi is enabled by the divine grace of the Lord to concentrate his mind upon the Lord. So perfect is enabled by the mercy of the Lord. The devotee can concentrate his mind upon the Lord with perfect sense of consciousness, and thus by chanting his holy name before quitting the body, the yogi is at once transferred by the internal energy of the Lord to one of the eternal Vaikuntha planets. Right? So if we are leading our life in such a way, then by the mercy of Krishna, Krishna will come, our bondage will actually, he'll remove all our material bondage, and he will give us the power to think about Krishna at the final moment. And thus, by chanting the holy name before quitting the body, we'll actually transfer by the internal Devi Shakti, by the internal energy of Krishna, will be transferred to Goloka Vrindavan. Right? So basically, this entire section is teaching us how we can live so that we can die in the perfect way. Right? In one of our purpose later on, we'll read. Prabhupada makes a point. We should live our life in such a way so we can die as like how Bhishma Dev is dying. And that is the perfection of our life. Otherwise, our death, if we are just forced by material circumstances, our death is just like the death of animals. The Prabhupada makes that point. And also in 23, he actually says, okay, yeah. Okay, let's go 24.
Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavadidam Hinumyaham Prasannaha Sarunalochano Mukham Bhujo Dhyana Patashchatur Bhuja.
May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face with eyes as red as the rising sun is smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body.
So he says pratiksha, pratikshatam, right? The last word in the first line. Pratikshatam means to wait. Pratiksha karna, right? We say that, right? Pratiksha, wait. So he's saying, oh my Lord, who is four-handed. Why four-handed? Because that is the mantra that Bhishma Dev has been meditating through his life. That is the form that he is actually meditating through the mantra, that four-handed form of the Lord. Beautifully decorated lotus face, eyes as red as the rising sun is smiling. Kindly await me at that moment when I quit this body. So Krishna is right there, right? So he's saying that please wait, till I leave my body. And then Prasanna, he's smiling. Hasa, Aruna means Aruna Lochana. His eyes are like the red, like the morning sun. That is like a beautiful description of Krishna. Right? And then it clearly says Chaturbhuja, the four-handed form of Narayan, is actually the worshipable deity of Vishnu Dev. Right? So now, so Prabhupada actually makes a point in the purport that a Vaishnava, as such, he is always humble. Like Bhishma Dev is not thinking that, I am a devotee of the Lord. Like before he said, I am your Ekanta Bhakta. So saying that, it's not that he is now puffed up and thinking that, oh no, I am Ekanta Bhakta, I will go back to Godhead. No, the mood of a devotee is he's always humble in his behavior. Although he's sent person certain, it was sent person certain, Bhishma Dev would actually enter Vaikuntha, but still, as a humble Vaishnava, he's praying, oh Krishna, please stay until I leave my body. Right? That is the mood of a Vaishnava. Okay. And Prabhupada makes another very nice point in purport. He says to the end of the purport, he said, a pure devotee is never very anxious to go back to the kingdom of God. One may say, like, what is that? Isn't our magazine that we print, Back to Godhead? Then we always talk of Back to Godhead, right? And then here Prabhupada is saying, is never very anxious to go back to the kingdom of God. So isn't that a contradiction? I thought my entire goal of life was actually to, get free from this material world and go back to Goloka Vrindavan. And then Prabhupada says, he entirely depends on the goodwill of the Lord. He is equally satisfied even if the Lord desires him to go to hell. So in one of the conversations, a disciple was asking Prabhupada, after this what? And Prabhupada said, we'll go to the hellish planets and preach there. So that is the mood of a devotee, that he is happy wherever he can actually serve Krishna, he can hear about Krishna, he can glorify Krishna, he can be in the association of devotees. Now, if that place is even the hellish planet or anywhere it is, right? So generally our principle is, yes, we want to, like initially we said, we want to get free from this bondage of birth, death, old age. We want to go back, we want to enter our spiritual world. But a higher conception is that of service. Higher conception is that of glorification, kirtan, shravan. That is the highest thing. And throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, we see this point. I'll just quickly share a few verses. Let's see. Okay. So this is and I just want to point out like different personalities from Bhagavatam. What is the final thing that they are praying for? Okay, I'll just quickly share my screen. Okay, so let's see what Dhruva Maharaj, finally when Krishna is in front of him, what is he praying for, right? So Dhruva Maharaj actually said, "Oh unlimited Lord, kindly bless me so that I may associate with the great devotees who engage in your transcendental loving service constantly, as waves of a river constantly flow." Right? Okay, so what is Dhruva Maharaj's main prayer? That I may always associate with those devotees who are actually engaged in your service. Okay? And then let's see what Prahlad Maharaj prays. Okay. Yeah, text 24. Yeah. So he says, "My dear Lord, now have complete experience concerning this worldly opulence, mystic power, longevity, and so on. I do not wish to possess them. My dear Lord, I request you to place me in touch with your pure devotee and let me serve him as a sincere servant." So that is Prahlad Maharaj's prayer. And then we also have Prithu Maharaj, right? What does he pray for, right? So Prithu Maharaj is saying, "I do not wish to have the benediction of merging into your existence. Right? I want, a benediction in which there is no existence of the nectarian beverage of the lotus feet. I want the benediction of at least 1,000,000 years. Thus I may be able to hear about the glories of your lotus feet from the mouths of your pure devotee." Right? So this is throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. I just pointed out 3 examples of Dhruv Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, and Prithu Maharaj. What is their benediction? And in either of them, do we see that they are praying that, "Oh, let me go back to the spiritual world"? No, their prayer is like, wherever we are, that is immaterial. Always we want to hear Hari Katha, we want to be in association of devotees, we want to serve Vaishnavas, and we want to always be engaged in service of the devotees of your Lord. Not even directly asking for service to the Lord, engaged in service of the devotees of the Lord. So that is actually the highest aspiration of the pure devotee. So he is not overly anxious to go back to the kingdom of God. Wherever he can get an opportunity to serve, hear Harikatha. The only desire that the pure devotee entertains is that he may always be in rapt attention when thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord regardless. Bhishma Dev wanted this much only, that his mind be absorbed in thinking of the Lord and that he pass away thus. That is the highest ambition of pure devotee. The highest ambition of pure devotee. So just always be absorbed in Hari Katha, Krishna Katha, have millions of years so that I can relish Hari Katha, Krishna Katha. Okay. So coming back to our theme here. So what is Bhishma Dev actually praying? He's saying, "Oh Lord, you see, please do pratiksha, please wait until I pass away, so that while you're here, I can bring the sweetness of your beauty with my eyes. I can praise you. I can reveal my prayers unto you, right? And then in that way, I can actually give my body." Okay, so when Bhishma Dev says that when he's saying, "Okay, now please stay here until I leave," right? So immediately Yudhishthira Maharaj is thinking that, "Oh, the time is getting close. He's going to leave. Let me ask him questions because I want to hear the knowledge for which I have come here. I want to hear all different kinds of dharmas from him." So next, immediately Yudhishthira Maharaj is going to ask Bhishma Dev some questions about different kinds of dharmas. Okay, so 25.
Sutta Uvacha Yudhishthirastadakarnya Shayanam Sharapandare Aprachad Vividhan Dharman Rishinam Chanushinvatam.
Swami said, Maharaj Yudhishthira, after hearing Bhishmadev speak in the appealing tone, asked him in the presence of all the great Rishi about the essential principles of various religious duties.
So after hearing Bhishma Dev speak, so Bhishma Dev is saying like, "Please remain here until I leave." And Yudhishthira Maharaj immediately like, okay, wait, I have questions for you, right? And then in the assembly, who all are there? Krishna is there. All the great sages that we read, everyone is there. But Yudhishthira Maharaj is particularly asking Bhishma Dev to speak. So again, we read this in the previous chapter also, that Krishna wanted to glorify Bhishma Dev, that he actually knows even more than me, even more than all these sages here. Bhishma Dev knows more than all of us. Hence, Yudhishthira, you should actually take instructions from Bhishma Dev, right? So that is our next section. So let's take a pause here. I see one hand raised. And then so up to this point, we have covered that first conversation that Bhishma Dev had with Yudhishthira Maharaj, where he had actually expressed that entire mood. and he has pacified Yudhishthira's lamentation, and through that revealed that all those exchanges were actually, all those sufferings are actually the anubhav, right? The exchange of love between you, Pandavas, and Lord Shri Krishna, and then he has also glorified Krishna in that way. And then he concluded by saying that, please wait, oh my Lord, please wait until I leave, so that I can appreciate, I can drink the beauty of your form through my eyes, I can glorify you, and in that way I can heal your body. Okay, so let's see questions, comments before we proceed. Okay, Rohini.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, Prabhu, if while we were discussing verse 20, if I understood correctly, you mentioned for pure devotees, this four bhavs, anubhavs, vibhav, vabhichari, and sattvic bhav enhance the sthai bhav. And for sadhaka, this four reveal the sthai bhav. Is that what you said? But so how do we understand this, Prabhu? For like sadhaka, like this, is this revelation going to happen like automatically, or someone will reveal, or like, and what stage of bhakti this revelation happens?
So, this is actually, one thing in bhakti is not like, one way, yes, we have a process like sadhu sangha, kriya, we can go that path. Or one way we can say, okay, sadhana bhakti, then you can go raganuga bhakti, and then bhava bhakti. So all those guidelines are given for our devotional, how we progress in our bhakti. But still, the time when Krishna is going to reveal, it is a relationship. So it is very individual in the way that the relationship is actually revealed. And how it is revealed? Well, sometimes it is revealed through the spiritual master. Sometimes it is revealed while we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam. One pastime just like appears, and you are just reading the pastime, and you are just crying, you don't know why you are crying. And there are so many different ways that this is revealed. But just to make the point that that it will be revealed. Like Krishna will take care. Krishna knows best when we are ready for it, and he will reveal it to us. How he does it, that depends on, it's a very personal thing. Personal, like, just like if there's an intimate relationship, then how that relationship is revealed, it is very personal. But just to make the point that that we don't think that this is so advanced, like, I don't know, will I ever be, I'm just a kanishta bhakta, I can never understand this. Just to give a point that even like in I'll say in our community, I have heard like devotees who have actually have that knowledge. So it's not openly spoken of, because that's not something that we speak of. But like if something is there, then you can speak to your guru, and but also if you see Prabhupada's focus, then he said like Krishna will do that. Our part, do our part. What is that? That is the verse that we read. We have to engage in devotion, we have to meditate upon Krishna, and we have to chant Krishna. Basically engage in service of Krishna, give our life to the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada. And all these things will happen. That is that side of the photo that will take place. Right? So that's one way of looking at it. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, no, I was just thinking, Prabhu, like, this, when the sthai bhav is like, one becomes aware of the sthai bhav, that only helps in even like, pursuing further, like, because that devotee will follow that particular devotee in, Braj Leela, and then, that will help him only.
Like Prabhupada in the 10th canto, when there's that entire the childhood pastimes, when there's the description of Mother Yashoda in the Damodar Leela, I think it's text number 4 of the Damodar Leela. There, when there's a description of the beauty of Mother Yashoda, Prabhupada makes a point that one should actually, one who is in that mood of maternal Vatsalya bhav, that's a sign of, then he should meditate on the qualities of Mother Yashoda, as described in this verse of Bhagavad. Right? So it is both ways. Like And also it is, we may get a hint and we may actually, go deeper in that, and then it may be revealed to a more deeper extent. And the revelation will come and we'll dive more deeper, and more the revelation, more deeper. So it is, it's not that one morning we wake up and, okay, this is my rasa. And, like, as such, like, this is not so much spoken of also, like this is Prabhupada. Focus on our part. Krishna will do the rest. He is there, he will take care, or a guru will come and he will guide us. Okay. Vijay,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, sorry, I have a question from the previous section. This is the last line of perfect of text 17. It's written that the pure devotee of the Lord accepts turbations as favor from the Lord. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no mundane difference between the two. So the two here refers to turbations and favors?
yes, tribulations and favors. Like,
okay.
Yeah, we accept tribulations as favors. So basically, Prabhupada is saying, either we are blessed by Krishna, or we are put by suffering by Krishna. Both of those is actually, since we are talking of those bhav, there's something called udipana, or, anyway, so it is an impetus for us to remember Krishna, right? So when we are blessed with certain opulence, then what does a person who surrendered to Krishna think? It's like, Krishna is so kind. He has given me all these opulences. Let me use those opulences in his service. That is a mood. And if suffering comes, then he just turns to Krishna. Krishna, you are giving me this. You have given, like, actually my karma is actually so big, but you have reduced it. And just say you're giving me a token. Let me actually, in this circumstance, just always think about you, remember you, be absorbed in you. So whichever way it comes, whether that's favor or tribulation, a devotee who is sincere on the path and whose only goal is to come back, is to connect with Krishna, he will see both with an equal vision, because these things, that suffering and favor, is actually a material thing, right? It's the dualities of the material world. And a devotee is above those dualities. He's just interested in the higher transcendental relationship with Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Okay, so 8:14. So let's see. Can we have 2 reflections from this entire conversation of Bhishma Dev to Yudhishthir? Or should I? Okay.
I like this point. I never thought about this before, that how Krishna in our heart as Paramatma is acting as a chariot driver for all of us.
He's actually giving us instructions. Go here, do this. But because of a false ego, we say, I know better than you. I know better than you. So I don't want to listen. This is actually, it will come later on, one more word actually Bhishma Dev used. He says Satvata Pungavate. That will come later, where he says Krishna is the leader of everyone. But he is actually particularly leader of the devotees, because the devotees are listening to him. Right? They are agreeing to be led by Krishna. But he is there, he is chariot driver for everyone. We just have to say, okay, Krishna, I'm tired. I don't know what to do. You please lead my path. You please show me. Tesham Buddhi Yogam Tam. Right? Buddhi Yogam Tam. You please give me that Buddhi Yoga so I can come closer to you.
I really like this point. A pure devotee is never very anxious to go back to kingdom of God. He entirely depends on the goodwill of the Lord.
And like one point to that is, initially in our spiritual life, our motivation is often that, oh, material world is too much suffering. I just want to go back home. And that is fine. But as we progress, then we may come to a stage where it's like, Krishna, finally, I just want to serve you. I just want to serve you, wherever it is. But that's actually a very high stage, and we have to be honest to ourselves. Personally for me, I can just say, like, Krishna, this material world is too scary. Maya is too strong. Please take me back. I don't know if I come back, then I can, really be always absorbed in you. Please take me back. So we have to be honest to what is our stage of bhakti. And if Krishna, I cannot take this material world. As Prabhupada says, not a place for a gentleman. I am just on that point. Please take me back as soon as possible. So just be honest with that.
Yeah.
Prabhu, I like this point in text 22. A living entity is made by the will of Almighty to be most happy when he places himself as dependent on the will of the God.
Condition of absolute dependence, 100% dependence. Krishna, everything. You are the only one. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord. Right? I know no one but Krishna. Thank you. Okay, ready to proceed? I want to do this one more section before we take the pause. The instructions that Bhishma Dev is giving to Yudhishthira, and then after a break, we'll complete the passing away of Bhishma Dev. Okay, so let's proceed. Next 26.
Text 26. Purusha svabhava vihitan yata varnam yata shramam vairagya ragopadibhyam amanato bhaya lakshana.
Yet Maharaja Yudhishthira's inquiry, Bhishmadev first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment.
See, like Prabhupada's translation is so poetic. Counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. It is actually like a literary ornament, right? Okay, so from 26 onwards, Bhishma Dev is going to give different instructions. Like one point we can see here is, by Krishna actually asking Yudhishthira Maharaj to come and receive instructions from Bhishma Dev, Prabhupada makes a point in purport that Krishna is actually proving the point that in whatever state a devotee is, he is always sound in his body and mind. Right? Like even in that state, imagine Bhishma Dev's state. Like he's on the bed of arrows. He is, imagine someone's body being pierced by all these arrows. You see on the screen? Imagine how much pain he's going through. Like even a small pin hit, we are poked by a pin and we are like so much pain and we cannot think of anything except that pain. And imagine Bhishma Dev, all these arrows through his body. And Krishna is proving a point that the pure devotee, even though in the most difficult situation, is always sound in body and mind. Otherwise, how could he give such beautiful instructions that he's giving now, on these different kinds of dharmas? So he started from Varnashram dharma, and then he will go on to Dan dharma, Raj dharma, Moksha dharma, and Bhagavad dharma. So, and also we see this in the life of Srila Prabhupada, right? Srila Prabhupada in the final stage in 1977, like that bed is still there, right? In Prabhupada's room where he was lying down. And that scene is there where Prabhupada is like basically bones, so thin and lying on the bed. But what is he doing? He's actually Jayadeva Swami Maharaj is there and he's having the dictaphone, and Prabhupada is translating, giving purports of Srimad Bhagavatam in that final, stages. Imagine, like we cannot even imagine how much pain is there, when we go through the old age and coming closer to death. But a devotee is always, and through this entire incident, Krishna is proving that point, and we see that in the life of Prabhupada. Last stage also is like dictating these purports of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that also makes a point that how dear is Srimad Bhagavatam to the devotees. Okay, so let's start off with the instruction. So, anyway, it's elaborate, but there are 5 main dharmas that are actually pointed out here. Okay? First one, Varnashram dharma. Second one, Dana dharma. That means the dharma of charity. Third one, Raja dharma, or the dharma of ruling, right? The kingdom. Raja dharma. Fourth one, Moksha dharma. Moksha dharma means the dharma to get liberated from this material world, moksha. Then is Tri dharma, like the dharma for women. So these are so these are the 5, and then he concludes by giving Bhagavad dharma, which is the highest of all. So the highest of all is the last one, which is Bhagavata dharma, or the dharma of devotional service. Right? So So Varnashram Dharma, Dana Dharma, Raja Dharma, Moksha Dharma, Stri Dharma, 5, and then the final one is Bhagavata Dharma. So these are the 6 dharmas totally, 5, and then the final one that he's talking about. Okay, so the verse we read is basically talking about Varnashram Dharma. So Bhishma Dev first, did we read the translation? Yeah, okay. So he first defined all classification of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual qualification. Okay. So Prabhupada in the purport talks about this importance of Varnashram Dharma. Like, and this is actually a topic that if you see, in Prabhupada's lectures, Prabhupada often like to bring up this point of importance of Varnashram Dharma. Because Prabhupada said like the society needs to be organized in terms of the 4 Varnas and 4 ashramas. And Prabhupada makes the point in purport that this 4 Varnas and 4 ashramas is actually designed in such a way that it will accelerate the transcendental qualities of the individual person. So if someone is actually acting according to his varna and also situated in his proper ashrama, then they actually accelerate the spiritual qualities that we have, accelerate the transcendental qualities that we have. And then Varnashram Dharma. So Prabhupada starts off in the purport, he says, first he's just pointing out the general principles for human beings. Okay, so he talks of 9 different aspects. So this is the second paragraph. And he points to 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, not to become angry. 2, not to lie. I'm just reading from the purport. 3, to equally distribute wealth. 4, to forgive. 5, to beget children only with one's legitimate wife. 6, to be pure in mind and hygienic in body. 7, not to be inimical towards anyone. 8, to be simple. And 9, to support servants or subordinates. Right? So these 9 are just basic principles to be called a civilized person. These 9 principles. Now further, then Prabhupada goes ahead and he elaborates on each one of those 4 varnas, starting with Brahmana. Right? So Brahmana, Prabhupada, the main point that he points out, Brahmana means samadama, right? Means to control our senses and control our mind. And Brahmana means he should be astikyam, right? 1842 is giving qualities of a Brahmana. It says one should seriously study the Shastra. Okay. So those are the points there are more points you can just read through. This is basically description of the Brahmana. Then Kshatriya, he actually says, what is the main thing for Kshatriya? A Kshatriya is especially advised to give charity and not to accept charity in any circumstance. Then Kshatriya should also be well versed in Shastra. That's why it says Raja Rishi, right? Raja Rishi, in the sense that they are actually well versed in Shastra, but not that they are actually teaching Shastra. They are well versed in Shastra because they know how to rule properly. And then also Prabhupada points out the thing about like this is common. They say like Hindu Dharma means ahimsa. Mahatma Gandhi actually was a major one who actually made this whole thing. Hindu Dharma means adharma. Prabhupada say actually whenever it is whenever violence is actually required to establish dharma, then that violence should be accepted as right. It is not the administration never pretend to become non-violent and thereby go to hell. And Prabhupada gives the example of Arjun. Arjun wanted to become non-violent. So, but that is actually not right. And then he was severely chastised by Krishna. Kshatriya means to actually protect. So he should take a violence as required. So, and also Prabhupada points out that now these days it is, the president just sits in his White House and he says, okay, you go and you fight. But that is not the system. The real system is the king actually goes in the battlefield and he's right there. Even in Battle of Kurukshetra, Yudhishthira Maharaj was there. Like Bhima and Arjun were the main ones fighting, but he was right there on the battlefield. And then as needed, then he also engaged in warfare. Then Vaishyas, what is the main thing? Prabhupada focuses on cow protection. It actually is agriculture and cow protection. The main thing. For Shudra, Prabhupada says they should have no independence. If Shudras are given independence, then they will engage in propensities like buying, women, gambling, because that is the tendency. So you can make out in Kali Yuga, everyone's nature is that of Shudra. Because as soon as there is free time, what do people do? wine wouldn't help. And okay. And then Prabhupada in the last paragraph, he briefly goes through the ashramas also, where he talks about brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. And the main theme Prabhupada is saying is the spirit of detachment. So if you see brahmachari, vanaprastha, and grahastha, and sannyas, that's completely detachment, internally, externally. In grahastha life, we are cultivating that mood of detachment internally, but externally there may be some attachment because there is family, property, children, so on. Right? But the spirit of detachment is actually a principle of all the four ashramas: brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sanya. This grahastha is given little leniency in externally having some attachments. Okay, so that's the varnashram. Next, in that next verse, he's actually talking of the remaining dharmas, remaining 5 dharmas. So 27.
Danadharman, Rajadharman, Mokshadharman, Vibhagashaha, Stridharman, Bhagavadharman, Samasa Vyasa Yogataha. He then explained by divisions acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively.
So dana dharma. Dana dharma means the dharma of giving charity. So what does Prabhupada mainly, he focuses on knowledge. Grahastha ashram means the duty of grahastha is to give charity. And Prabhupada here is actually saying at least 50% of our money we should give in charity. So this point about 50% is often discussed, in our devotee circle. That 50%, is it even practical these days, and so on. One point that I heard in a lecture that I really like is basically, it should, our mood of charity should be not that, okay, it is just like, okay, I can give so much, but I'll just give so much. I have to give something, so I'll just give something. It shouldn't be something like the mood of charity should be when we give, we should feel that, oh, I'm giving so much, like you should feel that intention should be that, oh, this is a lot. Is that okay to give? But just give it. That will really develop that mood of detachment. That will really develop the mood of charity. Another lecture I heard, one person said, like, whatever in your mind you're thinking, okay, festival is coming, I'll give this charity. And you feel like, okay, this is convenient level of giving. He said, once you think that, double it. Give double. Then you'll feel that, oh, this is, you'll feel something that, yes, I gave, something. So there's anyway some points that I have heard in lectures. But proper focus. Grahastha ashram means the ashram of charity. So that should be regular, having that habit of giving charity. So, and that's the main point Prabhupada talks about. And he explains a very nice principle. He says, he gives a wonderful example of the rivers and he says the rivers draw water from the sea, right? And then after that, through the clouds, the water is actually poured back into the sea, right? So similarly, our energy for earning money is actually just generated and borrowed from the energy of Krishna. Anything that we are doing, what energy we have to do is coming from Krishna. So just like how the clouds pour back the water in the sea, similarly, we should actually use our energy back in Krishna's service. So whatever we are getting should be used back in Krishna's service. Okay? And then Prabhupada says, when our energy is utilized in this way, then our energy is purified from contamination of material iniquities. Like this question is often asked, practical question that, I'm working with all these people and then there's, non-devotees and there is so much contamination and sometimes we don't know where our end products are being used. We are doing some software and maybe that software is used for something which is adharma, and there could be so much imperfection. What about all that? By giving charity, we are purifying all those material iniquities. Right? Okay, so that is dhan dharma. Then next Prabhupada talks of Rajadharma. Rajadharma is the dharma of the kings. Right? So, and then Prabhupada says that, how the kings were trained systematically to become munificent. That's a quality of a king, which be merciful. And they are trained to take Prabhupada quotes, and let's see. Prabhupada says they were trained to perform different sacrifices only for the prosperity of the subject. So they are munificent, they are doing sacrifices. And we read in Bhagavatam, right? When we read about next chapter, we'll read how Yudhishthira Maharaj ruled. Right? They do all the sacrifices for the benefit of people. And when they're doing the sacrifices, one important aspect is to give charity. They are munificent, they open their treasure house, they give charity to everyone. And then also how all the Raja Dharma important principle is the king should always be guided by Brahmanas, and they should be always alert for against thieves, dacoits, and so on. And Prabhupada again makes a point about nonsensical ahimsa. It shouldn't be just like ahimsa is just the principle. I remember once I was in this, an assembly with all like Hindu temples and all, and they had called some like some police people were there, and they were talking about how to give protection to religious organizations. And one person says, "Oh, actually, for us Hindu Dharma, it is all ahimsa. So whatever happens, we cannot take it." And I'm thinking like that's not true. Like to protect our property, we will have Kshatriya standing at the door if it is required. We'll take up violence if it is required to protect that. So nonsensical ahimsa. That is Prabhupada is condemning that. And then what is our tax law? So much like discussion on like, okay, what should be our tax budget and everything. Prabhupada says very simple. Taxation law is simple. There is no force, no encroachment. The king has a right to take 1/4 of the property. That's it. Full stop. Prabhupada makes it so simple. 1/4 of the production is actually the person gives, and the citizens are not giving out of like out of grudging, or why do I have to give? They see that the government is acting in such a way that they are benefiting all the citizens. So out of that, mood that yes, the government is doing so much for the society, I'm giving 1/4 in that. Okay, now Raj Dharma is done. Then next, let's go to Moksha Dharma. So Prabhupada really focuses a lot on Moksha Dharma. Elaborate commentary on that. So if you see in the purports also, he says, the paragraph starting with "as far as salvation is concerned," last but one, I think, that Prabhupada is talking of Moksha Dharma, salvation referring to Moksha Dharma. So there's actually different, almost like 10 to 12 principles Prabhupada talks about. He says like a Moksha Dharma means the first principle is they have to conquer the principles of lust, anger, greed, and so on. And then there are some, you can read through those principles, but some things are really wonderful. He says how to become free from anger. And this is, many times we get this question, like even we, in classes, people, Prabhuji, I get so angry. How can I get free from anger? Right? And the principle given to get freedom from anger, one should learn how to forgive. Why do we get angry? Because we are blaming ourselves or blaming others. Right? So we should learn how to forgive to actually overcome anger. Very nice point. And then to become free from unlawful desires, one should not make plans. So we all are subjected to so many different desires that come in our mind that, because of previous conditioning, we have these desires to enjoy material nature. So here it's very clearly, don't make plans. Yes, the desire will come, but don't plan that, okay, this is how I will act upon it. Right? Just how in Bhagavad Gita 270, Krishna actually makes a point that the desires are just like rivers flowing into an ocean. Right? They all will keep coming. But the one who's actually spiritually focused, who's self-realized, he just sees those desires but does not act. And just like an ocean is not disturbed by all the rivers coming in, because it is so vast and so deep. So similarly, our consciousness is so deep that even though all the desires come, they do not act. Right? So not to make plans for those desires. Then how to conquer sleep? That's a big question. Right? We always have a morning snoozing, keep snoozing. And here it is said, by spiritual culture, one is able to conquer sleep. By developing the importance of doing our sadhana in Brahma Muhurta, understanding the importance, and by developing that spiritual culture, we can conquer sleep. Then by tolerance, only one can conquer desires. Okay, how do you conquer diseases? And here, how do you overcome disease? By regulated diets. By planning a diet in a regulated way, we can conquer diseases. By self-control, one can be free from false hopes. Money can be saved by avoiding undesirable association. So I'll tell you a joke. This is one devotee was telling this in class that there's another devotee who went to a village in India, and he was saying, I have the formula to double your money. And he was saying, loudly, and people were like, wow, double my money. That sounds very interesting. And people were coming and saying, okay, what is your secret? And he said, just you have to do 4 things. No illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating. You do these 4 things, it'll save you so much money that whatever is your money, it will become double. Your savings account will become double. So here is saying, like, what is the way to save your money? By avoiding undesirable association. It is true, like as soon as we take up a spiritual life, so many of our like other desires of spending money in this, unnecessary things get avoided. So that's the point. Okay. Talkativeness can be avoided by gravity and silence. And so there are like few things I just mentioned. Then the last one is Sri Dharma. Sri Dharma is, as far as women are concerned, they are accepted as power of inspiration for men. Prabhupada actually gives the example, women are more powerful than men. So normally if you see in Bhagavatam, often there's a thing about women, they're like different things. But here we see Prabhupada is saying, according to Sri Dharma, women are more powerful than men. They are accepted as a power of inspiration for men. Like how we commonly say, behind every man's success, there is a woman. Once in a class, someone asked, I heard that lecture, someone asked Radhanath Swami Maharaj, that they say that behind every man, there is a man's success, there is a woman. So who is the one who is responsible for your success? And Radhanath Swami Maharaj said, Srimati Radharani. So anyway, so the point here, Prabhupada is actually saying that, men, like in the 4th canto, when there is when there's a story of Puranjan Maharaj, there at that time, is actually described that the woman is actually kind of if you consider a city which is guarded by a fort, like a wall that is covering the city, a woman is like that protection for a man from the allurement of Maya. The woman is actually a protection. So, and then Prabhupada talks about shyness is important for a woman, because by shyness, then they can avoid unwanted varna samskar and bad association. And this actually, the shyness principle is talked more in the next chapter, actually, chapter 10. Prabhupada talks a lot about like how shyness is actually the weapon of a woman, and that will always keep the woman protected. And then the last principle, the best is kept for the last, is actually a Bhagavad Dharma. So Prabhupada in this, he actually explains the last item is the process of pleasing the Lord. Bhagavad Dharma means to please the Lord. And here it talks about installing a deity at home by focusing on the deity. And Prabhupada mentions the 5 items that Rupa Goswami says are the most powerful items of devotional service. Worshipping the deity at home, serving the deity, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, residing in holy place, chanting the name. These 5 principles in Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami says, yes, there are 64 principles, but out of those, these 5 are most powerful, right? And that's what Prabhupada is actually mentioning in this purpose. And Prabhupada says all these are all inexpensive items by which one can actually please the Lord. Worshipping a deity, associating with devotees, serving the devotees, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and then residing in holy place. Okay, next verse 28. I think 2 more verses and then we'll take a break. And I want to go to the final, which is actually the nectarian section of Bhishma Dev leaving. Okay, so let's quickly do 28.
Dharmartha kama mokshamscha sahoyan yata mune Nanaka Kyanetihaseshu Varnayam Asa Tattvavid.
Hare Krishna. Then he described the occupational duties of different orders of and statuses of life, citing instances from history. For he was himself well acquainted with the truth. So he's a bit long.
If you say Sanskrit, it's Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So all these principles are principles of Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. And then he actually says, citing instances from history. So he actually was giving reference to different incidences. So it wasn't just facts as we described, but he was actually giving incidences of maybe like for Raja Dharma, example of previous kings who have ruled in such a way, and then he was elaborating on it. Prabhupada in the purport actually makes a point that, the different narrations in the Puranas, they are not necessarily in chronological order. Can be because Puranas is basically like a person speaking, he's saying like he's talking. So sometimes it's some incident that happened later in time could have been related before. And finally, everything is always cyclic. Prabhupada makes the point that it is actually in time-wise, it could happen in a cycle. Right, so you cannot, in a circular way, you cannot say which came before what. Right? So it is always like that. That's one thing. And the second thing, could be incidences that happen in different planets and different universes. Right? So sometimes we have this discussion about, a particular pastime is described in a different detail. Right? And one Purana may narrate in some way, and Bhagavatam may have a different. And one may say like, okay, which is finally the right way? Then that is actually explained by Acharya as Kalpa Bheda. Kalpa Bheda, maybe that same pastime is taking place, but maybe in a different Kalpa, a different time, or a different universe. And so all that things is there. But all those differences are there. But the main theme, Prabhupada says, we are simply concerned with the instructive lessons of such incidents. Yes, there may be some differences. So no need of fighting that, oh, Varaha came this way, or Varaha was born this way, or, this is what it is. The main thing is what is the instructive lesson from these different pastimes. Details are good up to a certain extent, but finally we have to see what do we learn? How is this creating a transformation in my heart? That is the main key. And this goes back to why are we studying Bhagavatam? Because we want that transformation where Bhagavatam will shower the prema, the drops of prema into the core of us. So we are interested in transformation. And this is also a point that I would refer back to your essays. When you're writing the essays, yes, there is a storyline, but from the storyline, try to see what is the instructive lesson for. That is what we are looking for. So try to get those, and that's the main theme of that. Okay, text 29, let's do, and then we'll take a break and we'll do the final section.
Dharman pravadatastasya sakala pratyupastitaha yo yoginascha mrityor vanchitastuttarayanaha.
While Bhishmadev was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will.
And so he was describing all these different dharmas. And then it actually, Uttarayana, the sun actually moved in the northern hemisphere. And then he said, that's it, full stop. Now I'm just going to prepare for the final departure. Right? So that is the last section where we read for the final departure. Now, one may ask, this is often asked that, in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is describing, that how yogis, they see those who live when the sun moves to the northern hemisphere, those who live in the fiery light of the day, they attain a particular destination, and those who live in the night, they appear at different destination. And then after the entire section, and Krishna says, but those are devotees, they don't care so much for all this. Now, Bhishma Dev is a Mahajan. He's a pure devotee of the Lord. And later on, we'll read how he's an eternal associate of the Lord. Then why is he waiting for the sun to move in the northern hemisphere? Why is that an important detail for Bhishma Dev? So these are often asked questions. So the main point here is we have to see that Bhishma Dev is also setting the right example of leaving the world, right? And if you, so there is a difference in the glorification of Bhishma Dev in terms of Mahabharata and in terms of Bhagavatam, right? So in terms of Mahabharata, what is the glory of Bhishma Dev? Oh, such an exalted personality. See the kind of vow he took. Bhishma Pratigya. Who can take such a vow? You know, and see how he ruled and how he did this and how he fought so many battles and see his power. That is the glorification of Bhagavatam, right? So he's a hero for so many different people, not necessarily devotees, like anyone who reads Mahabharata. He's actually a hero for them. And to actually for them to set the right example. See how wonderfully Bhishma left. That he actually left when the sun actually moved in northern hemisphere. So glorious is Bhishma Dev that. So they will actually glorify this aspect of Bhishma Dev because the Mahajana is also setting an example for all different kinds of people. For for devotees, we don't care, right? So for us, that detail is not so important. But for other people, that detail is the main thing. For us, what is important is the next section. How Bhishma meditates on the beautiful form and pastures of Lord. How that sweetness is there. Right? So that will be our session. Okay. So any quick comments before we take a break, and then we'll do our final part. We'll go a little faster, cover this section. But let's see. Any maybe a couple comments before we take a break.
Hare Krishna. I was wondering why Bhishma Dev wanted to see the four-handed Vishnu form, because Krishna is right before him, right? So why not? I was just wondering.
Yeah, that's a good point, and we'll come to that. Actually, it is said that the worshipful form of Bhishma Dev, the mantra that he was chanting, was for the four-handed form. So Bhishma Dev, his meditation is the form of the Lord in Vaikuntha. And in Vaikuntha, what is the form of the Lord? Four. So it is, two-handed form is more glorified when we go beyond Vaikuntha into dham such as Ayodhya Dham, Mathura Dham, and then final Goloka Dham. So that is where the two-handed form is actually more glorified and more worshipped. But Bhishma Dev's meditation is he's a dasya. His eternal swarup is that of a dasya bhav for the Lord in Vaikuntha. And hence his meditative form of the Lord is that of the four-handed form. So now also we'll read that point further. Anyway, I will mention, but okay, just to give a quick reference since I'm answering this question, that Krishna is right in front of him in the two-handed form. But still now we'll see the prayers of Bhishma there. He's not saying Krishna as the second person. You know how we say like I, you, and he, right? Like in grammar, we say I, first person, you as second person, and he as third person. He's saying all the prayers in third person. Though Krishna is there, he can say, oh, you, Krishna, you are so and so. But still he says Krishna as he, referring to the third person. Why? Because that is a particular mood that Krishna is, and that Bhishma Dev is meditating on. And that will be our discussion for next time. So in the next final session, we'll discuss this more. And if you still have the question at the last, you can again bring it up. Okay? But this is actually very, very sweet. As Bhagavatam is rasa, we are going to see that sweetness of Bhishma Dev. Okay. So any one more point before we stop?
So Prabhuji, did Krishna show his four-handed form to Bhishma Dev before he left?
Okay, so we'll come to that. I know all these questions are relating to our next section. So anything else? Comments, anyone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, sir.
The importance of women is so nicely described, Prabhuji, here. We treat like less powerful, but here it is treated as more powerful than men, and how they, yeah.
Prabhupada gives the example of Cleopatra. I forget the whole story, but the great emperors, like Prabhupada says in the lecture, like he gives the example of like a British general. He said like, he says like some British general, I think George Washington, if I remember correctly, he gives that example in the lecture and said like, he was asked that, he fell in love with someone who was, from a lower family or lower background. And then he was said that, okay, either you keep your love or you keep the kingdom. And what did he keep? He kept the love. He left his kingdom. So even such a thing as powerful as a kingdom, like women are more powerful, and for that, like men are willing to give up their entire kingdom. So yeah, women are more powerful than men in that way. Yes. Okay, so let's stop that. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back, and we'll do the sweet aspect of Bhishma Dev's leaving, which is actually the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam, sweetness of that rasa. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. So please come back in 3-4 minutes or 5 minutes maximum. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, everyone, please come back to the last section. Okay, so while people come back, any questions about next week's session? So I already saw like everyone has made pairs and you have selected the chapters. So yeah, like you both can plan, like both the persons in the team can plan in such a way that you have totally 12 minutes. So either one of them just does the flow of the chapter and other is selecting a particular theme or two themes from the chapter and elaborating on that. And you can see how you want to do it. Like one person is giving the flow, other person is giving a theme, then flow theme. However you want to do it. If you want to use PowerPoint, you can use PowerPoint, or if you want to just speak, that is fine. And please make sure it is 12 minutes sharp, because we want to do everyone next week. So 12 minutes sharp, and then we'll have 2 minutes question, or if someone has a question for you, or someone has a reflection on what you have said. Okay. Okay, so resume. Everyone heard that part about next week? Yes. Yes.
Prabhuji, I have a question. So I heard in several discussions that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation. Is it different, Prabhu, what we are reading purports? Is it different book or?
So Prabhupada, actually, when he's giving this commentary, he has actually taken points from the previous acharyas, and that is actually basically our system, right? The acharyas, basically, they take the explanation from the previous acharyas and they make it interesting, relevant. They actually share their own realizations and purpose. So Prabhupada has done exactly that. So he has taken from the commentary of Vishwanath Thakur and Sridhar Swami and Jiva Goswami. So different acharyas, he has actually taken the commentary from that, put it together in a form that we actually can relish. Now, one way Prabhupada's purports are actually certainly sufficient, and they are Prabhupada's ecstasy, so you can just read Prabhupada's purport and that is sufficient. Now, if you want to go more deeper, like my experience is sometimes when I read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, then I appreciate a point in Prabhupada's purport which I have missed earlier. Like Prabhupada may just say one sentence there, and maybe in my reading I missed it, but when I see Chakravarti Pad actually elaborating on that point, and oh, that's why Prabhupada is saying. Like one wonderful example is in the second canto, there is one of the purport that Prabhupada is, that is a particular theme that's going on, but Prabhupada in the purport proves the existence of the soul. And it is very elaborate. It's like, I think 3 pages purport. And I was thinking that, why is Prabhupada actually in this purport elaborating on this theme? How is it related? I was thinking that way. And then I saw in the explanation of Jiva Goswami, to that verse, he's actually given an elaborate explanation, and Prabhupada has taken from that and put it in this purport. So one way you can read Prabhupada's purports. Now you have more time, you want to go more deeper, then there is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport is the next thing to actually look deeper into. And then if you want to go more deeper, then Jiva Goswami's Kram Sandarbha. So these books are actually available if you want, but it depends on how much time. But if this is your first in-depth study, then you can just focus on Prabhupada's purport. And the second time you can go with commentaries of acharyas that way.
Those are different books, Prabhu? Different books,
yes.
Different set of Bhagavatam?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, Prabhu, so thank you so much.
Bhagavad Subodhini, what Gaurang Darshan Prabhu has given, what he is actually taking the flow from Chakravarti Pad. How he connects the verses connects the sections. He's actually taking from Chakravarti Pad to get the flow of the chapters.
Wow. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to get these books, like they are not, I don't have a stock of those books here, but I think an electronic version may be more easily available, but otherwise I think you may have to get it from India or maybe Amazon. Okay, so let's continue. Now is the highlight of Bhishma Dev's glories is actually revealed in the section, text 30.
Tadopasamritya gira sahasramir vimukta sangam mana adi purushe Krishnela sati tapate chaturbhuje purastite milita drig vyadharayat.
Thereupon, that man who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men stopped speaking and, being completely freed from all bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else and fixed his wide open eyes upon the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who stood before him four-handed, dressed in yellow garments that glittered and shined.
So here actually thereupon that man who spoke on thousands of meanings, thousands of battles, protected thousands of men. Actually, if you consider the history of Bhishma there, you can go how far you want to go. You can keep going generation after generation, and Bhishma Dev has seen them growing up, like you said. Okay, so Pandavas, yes, he was there when they're growing up. About that, you can say Dhritarashtra, Pandu, he saw them growing up. Then before that, Vichitravira, he saw him growing up. So he's like grandfather. How many generations he has actually seen? How many battles he has fought? So that way he is like spoken on thousands of meanings on different subjects. Fought so many battles. But all that, as I said, is a glorification of Bhishma Dev more from Mahabharata point of view. Now, the real glory, which is actually for the Rasika devotees, is pointed out in this section. And frankly to speak, when before reading Bhagavatam, the understanding of Bhishma Dev I had in my mind was great personality, taken vow, so heroic and all those things. But when you read this section, you realize Bhishma Dev, such a Rasika devotee, you understand the glory of his prema for Krishna, which is actually not so much pointed out in Mahabharata. And that actually gives a difference between he actually points out the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam, that Bhagavatam may have similar stories than like Mahabharata or other Puranas, but the focus of Bhagavatam is that rasa, rasika, right? So that's what is going to be discussed now. And then, he has done all those things. And also I find this verse, often there's a question that, my job is so busy, I have like no time. How can I think about Krishna? Here you see, like, what examples are we reading from Shastra? Bhishma Dev, imagine how much he had to deal with, how much political situations he had to deal with. He was there in the assembly where Dhritarashtra, Duryodhan were making all plans and all these politics. But while doing what he was doing, where was his consciousness? Where was his mind? That's going to be revealed. But then everything he said, okay, that's all done. Everything I did, I had to do it for my duties. Now I'm withdrawing my mind from everything else, focusing on Krishna. So this is, how I said, Bhagavatam is teaching us how to live and how to leave. So at a particular point, like we have done so many things in our life, but at a particular point, you have to just say, okay, everything I've done in terms of my duties, relationships, everything aside. Just now, withdraw my mind, that pratyahara, withdraw my mind from everything, and one pointed attention to Krishna, Krishna's holy name, Krishna's form. That's it. So he withdrew his mind from everything else, fixed it upon the four-handed, again Chaturbhuja, right? Chaturbhuja is the worshipful form of Bhishma Dev. So he fixed it on the four-handed form of the Lord. And here it actually says, who stood before him. So Vijay Mata's question, did Krishna show the four-handed form? According to his words, it's actually saying four-handed form who stood before him. So you can say, but explicitly it is not said that Krishna changed from two-handed to four-handed or so on. But later on, towards the end of this section, we'll read where Bhishma Pitama actually says, actually it is the same, that four-handed form, two-handed form, you are that same personality. So that is not a difference. Okay, and in the purport, Prabhupada actually says, Prabhupada points, the subject matter which attracts the dying man becomes the beginning of his next life. Right? This is basically Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter. Right? So Prabhupada in the purport, this is one unique place where he's quoting the translation from text 5 all the way to text 15 of the 8th chapter. Because the 8th chapter talks about Krishna is answering Arjun's question about how can one think about you at the time of leaving. Right? So we are not going to go through all those details, but the main theme there about the 8th chapter is how we can actually always think about Krishna. Right? So particularly at the time of death. Right? And then 8th chapter, the famous verse, Yam Yam Vapi Smaranam Bharam Chayate Ante Kalyaram Tam Tam Evati Konte Sadatad Bhava Bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will actually attain without fail. So Prabhupada is pointing out that Bhishma Dev is meditating on this form, and that is the state he is going to attain. Right? And Ante Kale Chamami Vasmaran Mukta Kalevaram. So whatever, whoever quits his body remembering Krishna, then he will certainly attain Krishna. Right? And if you see in that purports, of the Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter, Prabhupada repeatedly quotes the Mahamantra in those purports. Like I think in that entire Bhagavad Gita, those purports repeatedly, every purport has a full Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And the point that Prabhupada points out, that if one wants to achieve success and the end of the life, then one should practice remembering Krishna from the very beginning of his life. So this is a theme that is actually said that it's not that just at the final moment we can say, okay, now I can withdraw my mind from everything, focus on Krishna. No, unless we have practiced to withdraw our mind, actually every day. And when do we do that? Particularly during japa. When we are withdrawing our mind, when you are practicing again and again, mind is going withdrawing, mind going withdrawing, bring it back to the holy name, bring it back. Every time we are doing that, we are actually practicing for our final exam. Like how when people take like SAT exam, they have these pre-mock exams, right? It is just like a trial exam. So every day our japa, that way is a preparation for that final exam when we can actually withdraw our mind. So if during japa we are not taking that effort to withdraw our mind, then how will we actually do it at the time of our final exam? Think about the point to meditate upon. So, okay, next verse. And then Prabhupada also points out in the purport that, simply bhakti yoga is complete to bring one to perfection. Bhishma Dev had nothing to do with the different yogic principles of living Parayana and all those things. That is all secondary. That is to preach, to tell the people who see Bhishma Dev, not so much as a devotee of Krishna. They appreciate other aspects of Krishna. Okay, text. Okay, text 31.
Text 31, right?
31, yeah.
Vishudhaya dharanaya hata shubhas tad ikshayaiva shugatayuda shramaha nivritta sarvendriya vritti vibramas tushta bhajanya vishajan janardanam.
Translation. By pure meditation, looking at Lord Shri Krishna, he at once was free from all material inauspiciousness and was relieved of all bodily pains caused by the arrow wounds. Thus, all the external activities of his senses at once stopped, and he prayed transcendentally to the controller of all living beings while quitting his material body.
So basically, like, he withdraw his mind from everything else, the thousands of battles, thousands of subject matter, and he fixed his wide open eyes on Krishna, who's standing in front of him. And in pure meditation of just seeing that form of Krishna, right, he actually got freed from all material inauspiciousness. And that's the point Prabhupada focuses in purport. He actually said, when the son of Krishna is there, where is the question of darkness? The son of Krishna. So similarly, Krishna is right there, and Bhishma Dev is completely in pure meditation, seeing that form. So there is no question of material inauspiciousness. And at the same time, this material body, Prabhupada says, is actually a gift of the material energy, but is actually illusion. Our attachment to this material body is actually an illusion. So at the time when Krishna's son comes, then that illusion goes away. So though our material body may have so many difficulties, it is breaking down all the problems and pains and everything we are going through, because we have withdrawn from that and we realize our original Swarup in relationship with Krishna, or our original, at least like, Jivera Swarupa Krishna Nityada, at least that realization, then all those pains actually, which externally will seem so many pains, does not seem like pain. Just like in example of Bhakti Tirtha Swami. When Raghunath Swami Maharaj was serving Bhakti Tirtha, he makes a point that Maharaj's body was like so, like entire body was like, cancerous cells had taken over and he had bone cancer. And he was saying the body was so weak that when they used to lift Maharaj's body, like just by lifting him, the bones used to crack. Imagine how much pain. And then what did Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj say? Actually, my state is such that I am actually experiencing so much bliss that I will not exchange my state for anyone else in the whole world. That is the point of a devotee. That in spite of, externally someone is saying like, oh, so much pain, but internally he was relishing the association with Krishna. And that is the point here it is said, that thus all external activities of senses stop. He didn't experience, though all the pains from those arrow wounds were there, he was relieved from all body pains. That's how these devotees, though externally going through all that, they are actually okay. And then he actually prayed transcendently to the Supreme Personality. Okay, text 32. So now we'll read Bhishma Dev's prayers.
Shri Bhishma Uvacha iti matir upakalpita trishna bhagavati satvata pungave vibhumni sasukam upagate kvachit vihartum prakritim upeyushi yad bhava pravaha.
Translation.
Hare Krishna. Vishmadeva said, let me now invest my thinking feeling, and willing, which were so long engaged in different subjects and occupational duties in the all-powerful Lord of Krishna. He's always self-satisfied, but sometimes, being the leader of the devotees, he enjoys transcendental pleasure by descending on the material world, although from him only the material world is created.
So matihi, iti matir. So he's actually engaging. Let me invest my matihi, my thinking, feeling, willing, right? In Vitrishna means all those. It was engaged in so many different things. But now I want to withdraw it from everything and invest my thinking, feeling, and willing on Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how does he describe Krishna? As Satvata Pungave, right? Satvata means devotees. Pungave means leader of his devotees, right? So we talked about this point, right? So Prabhupada actually elaborates on this point of leader of devotees. Actually, Krishna is the leader of everyone, but because the devotees are willing to accept the instructions of Krishna, hence he is actually called Satvata Pungave. In general, he is the leader for all living entities, but because the devotees have no other desire other than to listen to Krishna's instructions, then he is Satvata Pungave. So Krishna is actually, how is Bhishma Dev remembering Krishna? In relationship to his devotees. And then Swasukham Upagate. To actually Swasukham here, Prabhupada says self-satisfied, and Chakravarti Pad is actually saying Swasukham, Swa referring to his own devotee, Sukham means to give pleasure. So he comes into this material world. Why? To give pleasure to his own devotees, like the Pandavas. So Bhishma Dev is looking at all the Pandavas and said, Krishna, you actually came to give pleasure to all these Pandavas who are right here. Swasukham. Okay, and he's so that's why he actually comes down into this material world. So now Chakravarti also makes another point. He actually says that Krishna has come now when I'm actually leaving my body. And when a person comes, then we should give him a gift. But what gift can I give him? I am lying on the bed of the arrows. What can I give him? I will give him the gift of my thoughts, which will come in the form of prayer. That is my gift to Krishna. So Chakravarti is thinking that. Okay. Now text 33.
Tribhuvana Tamalavarnam Ravi Karagora Ambaram Dadhane Vapuralaka Kulavritanam Nabajam Vijaya Sakeratir Astume Navadya.
Sri Krishna is the intimate friend of Arjuna. He has appeared on this earth in his transcendental body, which resembles the bluish color of the Tamala tree. His body attracts everyone in the three planetary systems, upper, middle, and lower. His glittering yellow dress and his lotus face covered with paintings of sandalwood pulp be the object of my attraction, and may I not desire the fruit of results.
So actually this section reveals the prema that Bhishma has for Krishna. It is like, Mahabharata Bhishma seems like a different person than this Bhishma. This Bhishma is actually seeing, what is he actually saying? Vijay Sakhe Ratir Astu Na Navadya. So this, if you see all these prayers, their kind of last line is similar, where he's actually saying that let this Krishna be the object of my attraction. He's just saying, this Krishna, let him be my object of my attraction. And he uses the word Vijaya Sakhe. Right? What is Vijaya Sakhe? Vijaya is who? Arjun, because he's always victorious. And Sakhe is a friend of Arjun. Now, if you see, why is Bhishma Dev particularly using Vijaya Sakhe here? Because Arjun is right there. And he's actually saying, you are so beloved. You're your friend of Arjun. And because of that relationship, you have actually come here. I am no one actually. I don't have that prema as Arjun has. But because you are so beloved to Arjun, and Prabhupada actually in the purport of 22, I mentioned that I'll come back to this point. And now in 33, is actually making the point. We really want to draw the attention of Krishna. You address him through his pure devotees. Instead of calling, oh Krishna, you call, oh Yashoda Nandana, oh Devaki Nandana, or oh Radha Sham Sundar. So when we call Krishna through his beloved devotees, then that is the way we can actually attract the attention of Krishna. Because Krishna loves his devotees so much. So when he hears that, oh, my love for my devotees, the devotee is glorifying, Yashoda Nandana is glorifying me as Yashoda, or Radha Nath, is glorifying me in that way. Then the Lord's heart is immediately attacked. So Bhishma is doing just that. Vijaya Sakhe is actually attracting Krishna's attention. Also, here is actually meditating on the beautiful form of the Lord. This is a theme that comes again and again in Bhagavatam, where we read the description of the form of the Lord. Different personalities, different devotees are describing the form. And Prabhupada, again and again uses this point and says that this is Krishna as a person. He has a particular form, and devotees are relishing that form. How can you say Krishna is impersonal? Right? So Prabhupada also uses the point. So Tribhuvana Kamana is actually the most desirable personalities all the three worlds. Actually, this is there even in third canto, when Uddhav is actually describing, he says like all the demigods, and all personalities, when they look at Krishna, they say like, he is actually the best creation of Brahma. There cannot be any creation more than that. Certainly he is actually the source of Brahma, but demigods who may not recognize that, they say like all the personalities, he's the best of all. He's desired by everyone. Three bhuvana, all three worlds are desiring this beautiful form of Krishna. What is that? Tamala Varna. Tamala means referring to the Tamala tree. It's like bluish, like the Tamala tree. Right? And then Ravikara Gaura Varam Varam. Goranga, golden, right? And dhoti is actually golden color. And then Anana Ambaja and Alaka Kula Avita. So face like a lotus and is covered with sandalwood paintings. Sometimes we see Radha Golokananda, they have some nice sandalwood paintings on them, right? So, so now what form is Bhishma actually meditating here? So let's see, maybe I'll come a little bit ahead and I'll make the main theme of the point here. Like Prabhupada and Purport makes a point in the last sentence that Bhishma Dev, it should be carefully observed how the great general is transcendently related to the Lord. Okay. Let's go further and then I will kind of summarize that entire meditation of Bhishma Dev. 34.
Yudhituragarjo vidumra vishvak kachalulita shrama varya alamkritasye mama nishita sharar vividyamana tvachivila satkavachestu Krishna Atma.
Hare Krishna. On the battlefield where Sri Krishna attended Arjuna out of friendship, the flowing air of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hooves of the horses. And because of his labor, beads of sweat wetted his face. All these decorations, intensified by the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows, were enjoyed by him. Let my mind thus go on to Sri Krishna. Hare Krishna.
So what is Bhishma Dev meditating? He's meditating on this particular, you can see my screen. He's just meditating on this particular asana. And that is his meditation. That is his form that he wants to, attain. Actually, later on you'll see in the prayers, Bhishma Dev makes a point that actually, let me die now when I'm meditating on this form. Why? Krishna is right there. Why do you want to leave now? He's right there. You should associate with him. No. I want only that form of Krishna where he's Parthasarthi, where he's breaking his promise and he's carrying a chariot wheel and he's coming to attack me. That is the form I want to meditate. And wherever Krishna is showing that form, I will be there. And that's why, like Chakravarti is saying, that he's an eternal associate of the Lord. He is in Vaikuntha, right? He's an associate of the Lord. And whenever Krishna comes to show this pastime, then Bhishma Dev is always there and he's relishing this nectar, right? So Bhishma Dev is actually, okay, this verse is actually saying on the battlefield, the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hoofs of the horses. So, just if you see the painting, everywhere there's like blood and people are killing each other and screaming and crying and blood, like rivers of blood flowing. So what is Bhishma Dev seeing? He's seeing, see my Krishna. His hair have become like, ashen, like dust has covered his hair because of all the movement of the horses. And then because of his labor, beads of sweat are all over his face, right? And all these decorations intensified by the wounds dealt by my arrows, right? So, like one may say, like, one may look at the scene and say, like, what, so much blood and this and that. But what is Bhishma Dev seeing? He's just seeing the form of the Lord, like as he's describing, and he's saying that that form, that the wounds that he himself has actually is glorifying that. All those decoration intensified by the wounds dealt by my arrows were enjoyed by him. Krishna actually enjoyed that rasa. Right? So one thing is, yes, Bhishma Dev is in Dasya Bhav, but he's actually giving that Virya rasa, that mood of fighting to Krishna. That is also one of the rasas. Right? So that way Bhishma Dev is actually giving pleasure to the Lord. So in this purport, so Prabhupada and Chakraripad really elaborate on this exchange. Like, one may see this exchange and say, like, Bhishma Dev shooting arrows. Who will shoot arrows on his own beloved Lord? Right? But Prabhupada says the arrows that Bhishma Dev was shooting is just like red roses offered to a beloved. And Chakravarti Pad, he gives a very Prabhupada quotes in this purport. He's like such a Rasika devotee. I'm just going to read that. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, a great Acharya and devotee, he says the wounds created on the body of the Lord by the sharpened arrows of Bhishma Dev were as pleasing to the Lord as the biting of a fiancé who bites the body of the Lord directed by a strong sense of sex desire. So we can just see, like, one way, like someone may just say that, oh, arrows, they're hurting the Lord. But what is actually happening there? It is the exchange of love between two lovers. It is actually a romantic scene. We may see all blood, arrows and everything, but it is an exchange of sweetest love that is happening on the scene. Who can actually see that? But Bhishma Dev, imagine, like, in that entire war where so many things are happening, his meditation is just on Krishna, how he's giving pleasure to Krishna, how those arrows are like the biting of a lover to the beloved, how the arrows are like offering of roses to the beloved. And later on we'll read that Arjun, in that photo also shows that Arjun is trying to stop Krishna from coming, right? You see, Arjun is trying to hold on to Krishna and say, Krishna, no, don't break your vow. I'll fight, I will do it. And then because Krishna is so much in love with his beloved that he cannot be stopped, just like a lover is running towards a beloved and no one else can stop him. So even Arjun is stopping, but still Arjun is unable to stop. That love is so intense, that prema is so intense. This is what is Bhagavatam. This is the ras of the Bhagavatam. Nowhere else is the entire scene glorified as a romantic exchange between two lovers. Like romantic in the sense, I'm not talking of Madhurya Bhav, but it is that exchange of that prema between Bhishma and Krishna himself. So, and then, we know the story, like how Bhishma, he created the 5 arrows and said, like, oh, either the Pandavas will kill or Krishna has to break his promise of never lifting a weapon. And then he fought in such a way that both Krishna and Arjun were in trouble. And finally, Krishna had to take up the chariot and run towards Bhishma. And Bhishma did everything just because he wanted to see Krishna break his promise for his pure devotee Arjuna. And he wanted to make that offering of Virya Rasa to Krishna. So that is the glory of the devotee Bhishma Dev. Okay, let's go further. We'll talk more about this. 35.
Tapati sakivacho nishamya madhye nija parayor paloyor ratam niveshya stitavati parasainikayurakshna Ritavati Parthasake Ratirmamastu.
Who's next?
In obedience to the command of his friend, Lord Sri Krishna entered the arena of the battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjun and Duryodhan, and while there, he shortened the lifespans of the opposite party by his merciful glance. This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be fixed upon that Krishna.
So previous verse was Vijaya Sake, here Partha Sake Ratirmamastu. Let my mind be fixed on Vijaya Sake, Partha Sake, oh beloved of Arjun. So Bhishma Dev's mood is again and again. Arjun has such prema for you. Certainly I'm not at that level. Right? I'm not at that level. My mood is, but because you're so dear to Arjun, by remembering Arjun, he's actually, Arjun and Krishna's love, he's actually trying to draw the attraction of Krishna and say like that. My mind, we focus on this, Partha Sarthi, that is the form, that is my Swarup, that form is my form of meditation. So if you consider, Krishna has like so many different pastimes. And just this one pastime, which is actually an act of, someone may see extended as an act of violence, is actually the meditation of the pure devotee of Vishnu Dev. Right? And then he says, how when Krishna, in obedience to the command of his friend, right? So we read in the first chapter how Arjun said, please take my chariot in between the two armies, right? And I want to see who is actually assembled here. So Krishna was following the instructions of Arjun. And then, and when he actually came, just by his presence, by his merciful akshna, akshna means glance, by his glance, he shortened the lifespan of the opposite party. And he gave them benediction that anyone who would die on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, they'll get at least Sayuja Mukti. If they look at Krishna with affection, then they can actually enter Vaikuntha. That was Krishna's benediction to all of them. Right? So he mercifully, he reduced their life and he gave them liberation. Let my mind be fixed upon this Lord Sri Krishna. Then 36.
Vyavahita Pritana Mukam Nirikshya Svanavadhad Vimukasya Dosha Budhya Kumati Maharadatma Vidyaya Yash Charanarati Paramasya Tasya Mestu.
When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. Hare Krishna.
Charana Ratihi. Charana Ratihi. Ratihi means attraction. Charana means lotus feet. So let this lotus feet of Krishna, Paramasya, Krishna, Tasya mestu, let them be my object of meditation. And what is the point he is glorifying? It is this Krishna who actually, Arjun was seemingly polluted by ignorance. Arjun was also an associate. It was just, Krishna put Arjun in ignorance, so that Bhagavad Gita was spoken, and the Lord eradicated that ignorance by giving the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So to this Lord, let my mind be focused on the lotus feet of this Krishna. Such beautiful prayers, like imagine Bhishma Dev's situation, just meditating out of love, out of prema, just that emotions of prema, just like overflowing in the form of these beautiful prayers. Okay, 37.
Svanigamam apahaya matigyam ritamadikartum avapluto ratasta dritarato charano vyayach chalakur hatiriva hantum ibham gato tariyaha.
Hare Krishna, fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way.
So fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise. He took the promise, I will not take any weapon. But Bhishma wanted to say that, oh, here, Krishna is more concerned about the protection of his devotees than to keep his own promise. To protect Arjun, he's willing to break any promise, right? So fulfilling my desire, Krishna wanted to, Bhishma Dev wanted to see Krishna in this form. That is his eternal swarup of meditation. This form of Krishna, holding the wheel and coming to Krishna. That's his form. So fulfilling my desire, sacrificing. He got down from his chariot, took up the wheel, ran towards me, Harin. Just as a lion goes to elephant. Like when the lion has to attack an elephant, because the elephant is so big, the lion has to use all his force and go like, really like charging at the elephant. Otherwise, how is it possible for a lion to defeat an elephant? He has to use all strength and go like full force. Similarly, Krishna is running full force. Why? If he had to kill Bhishma, he could have just taken Sudarshan Chakra and killed Bhishma, right? What is that? He's running with full force. Why? Because of that mood of love. He is drawn by that so much love for Bhishma that he cannot control himself and is running towards Bhishma with that chariot. Externally, it is an exchange of the Veera Rasa, but internally, it is actually that love that Krishna is actually experiencing, and he cannot stop himself. And then in that, even his outer garment fell away. Normally, outer garment falls away is like an embarrassing situation, but here it is particularly mentioned to make the point that how much love he has, how much love is there that he cannot even hold himself. He's going so fast, his outer garment is falling, and he's just going as a lover is going to meet a beloved. Okay, 38.
Shritavishika hato vishirna damsha Kshataja pralipruta atatayino me Prasabham abhisasaram vidhartam Sabhavatu me Bhagavan gatir mukunda.
May he, Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield, he charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds.
So, Sa Bhavatu me Bhagwan Gatir Mukunda. Gati means destination. May Mukunda be my destination, my Gatihi, right? Sa Bhavatu me Bhagwan Gatir Mukunda, the person who gives liberation. Let he be my ultimate destination. And on the battlefield, he charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrow. So we see again and again, Bhishma Dev is just meditating on that one scene. That's it. That is his object of meditation, right? Right there, just that scene of Krishna charging. That's it. That is his, one way his, and that's why he says, like, later on, he said, like, let me die now, because now in this pastime, you have finished that scene. I want to go back to the next pastime where you're showing the scene so I can again be a part of it. That is my desire. Right? His shield is scattered and body was smeared with blood due to wounds. And certainly, the other aspect to explain is like, why is Krishna sweating? Why is blood coming out? Ishopanishad says he has no veins. But all that point is to just nourish that rasa. Like if there was, it almost seems silly that, if Krishna is trying to enjoy this rasa and arrows are coming in, Krishna is like, I'm Satchidananda Vigraha. What does that mean? No, Krishna is right there. He wants to relish that rasa. So it is like it's poking him, and then like it's like blood is coming up, and then they are relishing it. Like how the Chakravarti Pa's example of biting, that it is love there, but it may lead to something like blood or something. So okay, 39.
Vijayarata kutumbha ata totre Dritahaya harashimi tachri yekshaniye Bhagavati ratirastu me mumurshur Yamiha nirikshya hatagata sarupam.
At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction to be Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with the whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death.
He's meditating on that Partha Sarthi form, right? with a whip in his right hand, because he's he has to take care of the horses and he's a chariot driver, and a bridle rope in left, and he's giving careful protection to Arjun. And let that personality, that Parsarthi form be the object of meditation. Okay. Text 40, let's just go to the English translation. Ratnarita, you can just continue translation because we are out of time.
Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Shri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Rajadhan, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance.
So now, now after meditating that, he's in 39, he said that this is Parsarthi, that is my object of meditation. That is what I want to meditate on. He is that Krishna coming with the chariot wheel. That is it. That's it. But why is he now going to the gopis? Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Shri Krishna, whom motion and smiles of love attracted the gopis of Vrindavan, right? So what is the mood that Bhishma Dev has now? Certainly he's not aspiring for that mood, right? This point is there, that whichever is one's Sai Bhava or one's Swarup, that Swarup he is perfect in that. So though Bhishma Dev knows that yes, Arjun is at a higher relationship than me, gopis, their love for Krishna is even more higher, but he's actually meditating on that gopis' love for Krishna to actually pray to get the mercy of the gopis when he's actually leaving his body. Because the gopis are so dear to Krishna, he knows, oh, if I say gopis, then Krishna cannot resist. So I have to just remember the gopis and get the mercy of the love of the gopis of the love. And in that way, Krishna will shower his mercy upon him. So clearly, Bhishma is not aspiring for that rasa. Actually, Chakravarti actually makes the point that who can aspire for that rasa? That is so highest. That is the highest form of love. But I'm just remembering them to draw their mercy. And he also says that how the gopis, they actually imitated. This is there in the 10th canto, in the Panchadhyaya chapters. And when Krishna left the Ras Leela, and the gopis, they were actually all remembering the pastimes of Krishna, and they were actually enacting those pastimes. Like one of the gopis actually became Kaliya, and the other one climbed on top of the other gopi, and they were imitating all these different pastimes of Krishna. So by remembering those, Bhishma is actually praying to get the mercy of the gopis. Okay? 40, I know it's time, but 41, 42, two more verses. We'll just read the English translation.
At the Rajasuya Yajna sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthir, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal learned orders, and in that great assembly, Lord Shri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remembered the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord.
And so we know at the Rajasuya Yajna, when after Yudhishthir was established as the emperor of everything, then in that assembly at the start of Rajasuya Yajna, that person had to be selected who is like the best, the most worshipful personality to receive the worship. And then in that assembly, Krishna was actually selected, and that's the time when Shishupal was killed and so on. But Bhishma Dev is actually meditating how in that assembly there were sages from everywhere, all the kings were there, but my dear Lord Krishna was glorified and selected as the greatest personality. And that is, if naturally, if you are in love with someone and that lover is glorified by everyone, then naturally you feel you want to remember that, right? So here Bhishma is saying that even Duryodhana, all these personalities are, but in that assembly, everyone was recognized Krishna as the greater person. So I want to meditate on that Krishna. And 42.
Now I can meditate with full concentration upon that one Lord, Shri Krishna, now present before me, because now I have transcended the misconceptions of duality in regard to his presence in everyone's heart, even in the hearts of the mental speculators. He is in everyone's heart. The sun may be perceived differently, but the sun is one.
Now I can meditate full concentration upon this Krishna. And then what is he saying? Actually, Krishna in the heart of every living entity, Krishna who's standing in front of me, and my meditation on that form of Krishna. As I said, he's saying Krishna as the third person. He's not saying you, Krishna. He's saying Krishna, he, referring to the form of Krishna holding that chariot wheel and coming. That's his meditation. But he's saying that Krishna in the heart, Krishna, you standing in front of me, or Krishna that who's running with a chariot coming to me, chariot wheel coming to me. They are all the same Krishna. There is no duality there. Prabhupada in the purport says, one who understands Krishna as Bhagwan, he realizes Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagwan, it's all my Krishna, right? Whether it is Krishna in Dwarka, Krishna in Mathura, Krishna in Vrindavan, it's all my Krishna. It's all my Krishna. There's no duality there. It's not that this form, that form. No, it's all my dear Krishna. So hence I am giving my full concentration upon this Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? The sun may be perceived differently, but the sun is God. So that is basically Bhishma Dev's prayer. So beautiful. It just reveals the glory of Bhishma's love for Krishna. His prema is just overflowing in these premas. All from one scene of Krishna's pastime. How many pastimes did Krishna show? Unlimited, right? In that just one scene one can pick, and we can see how much sweetness is there in that scene, which one would say is just a scene on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where there's blood and all the shouting. How much sweetness is there in Krishna, in that Leela? It is an exchange of rasa between lover and beloved. How sweet is that? So those who are devotees in that mood, they can appreciate Krishna's every pastime. They see sweetness in any pastime of Krishna. Okay, and then finally this chapter ends with like Krishna. After this, Bhishma he attained the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Basically, he merged his thoughts, everything into Krishna. That basically attained the Vaikuntha planets, and then all the demigods and all the different planet personalities, they showered flowers from the top, and then Yudhishthir was actually, for a moment he was feeling that mood of separation, lamentation, that mood of separation from Bhishma, and then they all went back, and Yudhishthir was now ready to take up the position of emperor and to rule the. Okay, sorry, I went over time. So we'll stop here. Thank you all so much. So I hope this was, and then the sections are so wonderful that, when I'm studying, I feel like, can I do justice with the sections? So much. And I just pray that, you all can absorb that sweetness, that prema in this wonderful, wonderful pastime. So, okay, so thank you so much. We'll end here. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, वंशकल्पतरु कृपा सिंधु एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो। Thank you so much. So it's late, so if you have to drop out, feel free. If you want to just share one point before dropping out, that is also encouraged. If you have questions, we can do that. If anyone wants to, yeah.
This particular form of Krishna is also, the name is given Rathanga Pane, right?
Yes, exactly. That's one of the names in Vishnu Sahasranam also, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
I love the idea that it's Krishna consciousness is so personal, that we have a personal relationship with Krishna, and that that focus is not just on all the aspects of Krishna, but at one point it becomes more and more specific. Like Bhishma is just focusing on that one form, and that's his Ishtadev. He's just focused on that Ishtadev, and that's just such a sweet realization.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
This is a practice of our giving the body. So while meditation, while doing chanting, we should withdraw from everything and concentrate on Krishna. So that this is a practice for that was mind blowing for me. So it's also an impetus for us to chant good japa. So
yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a key practical point from this entire month. Thank you.
I really like that point that the Lord is satisfied more when his pure devotees are glorified. So to remember that and glorify them.
Yes, always address the Lord through his pure devotees. Yeshananda, right?
Yeah. Thank you,
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I really like the point of how Vishnu Dev is glorifying the mercy of gopis. It's like, he's a Mahajan, and we know Mahajana Sagata Supanta. So, we should always be, or, whatever type how we might have, but we have to always ask for the mercy from every Rajvasi.
We're not aspiring.
Including Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you. The mercy is all we are made of. It's all a part of mercy. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I like the point that in that great assembly where the Rajasya Yuga was performed by Maharaj Yudhishthir, everyone was worshipping one and only one, the most exalted personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. So there was no confusion.
Like Prabhupada makes a point in purport that even if they did not recognize Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead, at least they recognize Krishna as the greatest of all personalities. So this was wonderful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I really like the point that Krishna is the leader of all devotees and non-devotees. But in the case of non-devotees who never care for his instructions, he just keeps silent. Although his willingness, all their activities and hours, them are necessary, so it's good or bad.
Thank you, Mati. His name is Satvata Pungave, the leader of the devotees. The leader of everyone for devotees. Specifically a leader because they are willing to be led by Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I like the 37 text. It says like how Lord Krishna, he broke his promise for dear devotees, because devotees desire, like he fulfilled like that. So it's a main point. Hare Krishna.
It says by keeping Bhishma's promise, which was more important than his own promise.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, ma'am.
I like the point. What pleases the Lord most is when he is addressed in relationship with his pure devotees, like Yashoda Nandan, Devaki Nandan, Radhanath, Radha Kunj Bihari. That is very sweet.
Yes.
Instead of directly calling Krishna, we should always call him before associating with the devotee.
Wonderful point, Mati. Yeah, this is very practical, right? When you go to Krishna, we can always pray to Krishna in relationship to his devotee. Thank you. Thank you.
Prabhu, I like the point that in text 29, even though the devotee attains the supreme destination, even if he passes away at an inauspicious time, but Bhishma Dev, just to set an example for all kinds of people, he waited for the Uttarayan time to leave the body.
Yes. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yeah. The point, the subject matter which attracts the dying man becomes the beginning of his next life.
And that actually in the 8th chapter, Prabhupada mentioned that whatever we do throughout our life is going to be a subject matter for at the time of death. And that is going to lead to our next life. Very nice. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
I wanted to also say behind success of every man, there is a woman. Everyone has put in the chat. Behind the success of you, Ratna Mataji.
That I will accept it. Whatever little I am, it is glories to her. Thank you. Anything else?
Prabhuji, I was just trying to visualize how Bhishma Dev was meditating on all the forms of Krishna in the battlefield. It's just so beautiful, Prabhu. Just going with your explanation and just trying to visualize, it's just ecstatic. For me, the course and everything is on one side, and just being with your explanation and all, everybody sharing, that is the best part, Prabhu. I get a course certificate or not, that's immaterial. This is just wonderful.
I hope everyone has the same mood that we are not doing this for exam or for certificate.
Yeah.
It is a life, you can really But you all can pray for me that I can do some justice to this. It's like so sweet. It's like you read the sections, like, how can I ever explain this? It's like so much nectar, and like, so you all please pray that I can speak properly. But thank you.
You are doing the justice.
Yeah.
Every prayer, it just goes in the heart directly.
So we are all
Shri
waiting
Mataji,
for
first point. Oh, 1 minute. Shri Mataji, your first point is like, that is the Rasika Bhaktas. Like we are seeing the battlefield of Kurukshetra, everyone is seeing fighting, killing. What are we seeing? We are seeing a love scene there. That is so touching.
Actually, we are waiting for every Sunday. So it's so wonderful what you're giving. It's like we just count the days and minutes so that Sunday morning will come. Such a wonderful thing. Thank you so much.
I'm happy to hear how much you are relishing Bhagavatam.
Yeah, it's a transcendental love actually for devotee and Lord. It's
Yes, Prabhuji, we echo with the other Matajis and feel like it should never stop. This should go on. So nice of you, Prabhu. Very beautiful explanations, heart touching. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so thank you all so much. No questions and stop here. Okay, so remember every time for next Sunday, you all will be doing the speaking. I'm going to listen. So please prepare and make it 12 minutes sharp. So if you want, you can time yourself. 12 minutes sharp and then 2-3 minutes for questions, reflections. Thank you so much. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Panchakalpatarubhyasya kripasindhave vacha patitanam pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo.